So exactly when the trigger is pulled on some of these arrests, which in the case of, say, a John Brennan, even with the grand jury, President Trump, because it involves matters of national security, is reserving the right to agree and allow it to happen with exacting precision. So there's some date certain coming, and we're in the season, but exact timing, he's not giving that away. And there may be, it's not about a date time checkpoint solely, it's about a threshold. Certain things have to have reached a certain point of development, a crossroads, and then you take that option. And we haven't quite reached those crossroads yet. So there's yet more to happen before uh, these next things, the rest. The rest are really where it starts to get real for people. And then there's further disclosures based on who's arrested, on what basis, and how the prosecution's going to happen. Is it going to happen within the Justice Department and the local and federal courts, or is it going to happen within the military? Because remember, when our election system here in America was attacked, it was by foreign actors, nation states. Ultimately, those servers in the server farm in Serbia were being operated by Venezuelans under Cuban intelligence agency supervision, Cuban operatives. Remember when we went in and got Maduro, all of his security teams were Cuban. That's why the people of Venezuela were so thankful, because they were, you couldn't get a driver's license without a Cuban agreeing to let you get it. They were running the country. Maduro was just their puppet. And um, that's also the case through much of what we're going to discover over the next weeks, months, years, is that uh, China, uh, Cuba, Venezuela, Serbia, a number of national, international organizations were colluding to allow remote voting, drop boxes for your votes, uh, uh, people not being able to gather together correctly, the machines being used in wonky ways, and you couldn't investigate to stop the American people from being able to interact, investigate, and stop. It cost tremendous amount of life in America and across the world. And American elections, it was aimed at elections across the world to get you to where we just all vote on our cell phones. You'd never get another honest election for the rest of your life. You'd have the appearance of an honest election, and all the theater and everything else is just a magic act by magicians. Just like the priests of Baal did a magic act. We're going to have God above take your child. He requires child sacrifice. When in reality, what was it really about? It goes back to Cain and Abel. If Cain was a hybrid and child of Lucifer, Satan, the devil, if you will, which is what the occult believes. Doesn't matter if it's true or not, it's what they believe. You don't see it in the Bible, that's fine. Although it doesn't list Cain as a child of Adam. He's not in the line, not because he did something evil, because he wasn't a genetic child of Adam. Uh, uh, Eve was beguiled. Where did this entity, this creature, come from? What's this creature's origins? Who found his way into the garden? In their belief, he's one of the 200 that fell from heaven to the top of Mount Hermon and then came down off the mountain and eventually built a city built around child sacrifice, which children were being sacrificed. Think of this. Um, it's said that the 200 at Mount Hermon that fell from the sky, they were all male, and they preferred the company of each other, kind of implying maybe a homosexual or something like that, but also intellect, etc., they were, from on high somehow, fallen angels of some sort, fallen creatures, humanoid, not human, not directly descendants of Adam, in order to go forward with the planet. Well, was part of that just the same as at the city of Baal? If there's any chance that you're a pure descendant of Adam and Eve and not a hybrid, Eve and Lucifer, Satan, the devil, the green man, for he hid amongst the green leaves of the garden, and beguiled Eve, taught her the trick, and then she went and showed Adam the trick. She had twins, but by two different fathers in the same birth cycle. That's the way it's believed. That's their belief. That's the occult. Doesn't matter if it's true or not. It's just what they believe. So you're fighting a religion. And they believe that they have to take the population down to just the hybrids and get rid of everybody else and start over. So there's no direct descendants of Adam.
I think we just lost you there, Juan, for a little moment.
Not sure if you could still hear us.
Audio, anyway. Just wanted to ask, are they the... Yeah.
We lost you after you were talking about how wonky it would be for King.
I'm sorry, I had a call coming in again.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I had a call coming in. I apologize. But you see what I'm saying? There's this continuing theme over and over and over again in this good versus evil and who inherits the planet. This is for the whole planet. I've mentioned those stories before, but we may have new people. The story of Osiris and Set, two gods, brothers. But one being Set was supposed to be, very kind to humans, loved humans, took care of them, everything else, watched out for them. Osiris was the most wicked of the gods, running the earth, these ones that fell from heaven, and chopped his body into 14 pieces, spread them all over the world. The mother goes out and finds all the pieces of the evil son, except for one, and reattaches the body to itself. And in this god occult, world, fairy tale fable world, if she can get his body reassembled before sunset, and the world today, for example, President Trump has called the American people to come to the National Mall in Washington, D.C., and rededicate America to God and his services, and to good and to righteousness. Where are we going to be at? In a city built around occult, evil themes. The Washington Monument, in the cult that was running the way Washington, D.C. was built, the way it was designed. The Washington Monument symbolically is the penis of Osiris from the tale that I just told you. And the whole city is built around the occult themes of Isis, Osiris, Set, Horus, the angles of the streets, the buildings and their sizes and their orientations. Look at the Pentagon, 5-sided building. What's 5 mean? It's the number of grace to Christians, judgment, destruction within the occult. Why do you build the Pentagon with 5 sides? What does the Pentagon orchestrate and supervise? And so the numbers do mean things. The alignments do mean things. When we go to Washington, D.C., it's not to be in agreement with this horde symbology. It's to retake this national city for good and not for evil, and to stand against that symbology that others put into play and into place, to steal the vision of America that goes back to the Pilgrims, even prior to the Constitution, which is even more important. And that's why President Trump, he's carrying his Bible that's a gift that goes back to a revival that happened in his mother's time and grandmother's time, uh, uh, not for just America, but for the world, and a move of God in the world, across the world, that is needed at this crucial moment in time, coming full circle. So, and I don't want to dominate everything. You got Sheila here. You got one of the great minds on a lot of these things. Also, am I on track here, Sheila? Is there anything that I'm forgetting to add here that people need to be aware of?
You're on top of all of it. The Osiris, people don't realize Nimrod. It's all the same God. Nimrod said he went to the sun and came back as Baal, the sun god for everybody. And then when he went to Egypt, they deified him as Osiris and deified his mother as Ishtar, Easter in English, and also Isis. And when people get in the secret societies, they take oaths to all of this, and also to Ahura Mazda, the ancient religion of Iran that came out of Egypt. And people don't understand, because when you take those oaths, you're just doing it for a few seconds. So all of this is connected and related. And Nimrod, his mother was pregnant with his son before he was cut into pieces. And it was done by the other family members, because Nimrod was a great grandson of Noah. It was Cush's son, Nimrod. And so the brothers, the uncles and great uncles took this on, and they cut him into pieces and put him all over, saying, "This is your God." Now, is he going to bring his pieces back together? And so that part of the story hasn't been told, because Easter wanted it to be an immaculate conception. And so to duplicate the Immaculate Conception, they created this, and people have put up these symbols all over the world. I've heard there's over 300 around the world. When you go to the military funeral locations for the Civil War, it's sad to see all those soldiers with big obelisks on the top, or sometimes that's their whole symbol. At the end of World War I, our town, small farm town, had the largest per capita per the Omaha Herald newspaper for World War I. And so all of those names that were sacrificed in World War I were put on what? In the center of town, an obelisk. Mm-hmm. And they've kept it, and now it's in the park in the town. We don't realize how these stories and what they become and what we think we believe in or what we think we know. And that's why there was somebody that put out in the chat that it doesn't matter if you don't understand these things, because Father's going to protect you under his wing. That's not how it works, guys. We've been deceived, and Father's very concerned about the deceivers, and they've spread throughout the land. So if you're a deceiver and you want to just tell people things that aren't from the Father, that's up to you. That's your choice, because everybody's making a choice. And you can say, I'm not choosing the other kingdom. But if you're living for the other kingdom, you are making that choice. And if you're choosing not to seek the truth, and choosing, once you know you're deceived, to continue to be deceived and continue down that same path, you have chosen. And so it's that simple. And those that are protected under the wing are the ones, the innocents. And the innocents are what Juan has been focusing on today. We're letting this happen to the innocents who don't know. I mean, somebody just sent me pictures and want me to send it out. They've got Charles Schumer kissing kids on Epstein Island. I said, you guys, I don't care. I didn't even want to see this, but now I can't unsee it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's what these people have done, what the UNESCO, the UN people have done around the world with the children around the world. We didn't know. But now that we're knowing, it's time to take a stand. Now that we know, it's time for us to decide. Because if you think you're not deciding for the other kingdom, do you know you're deciding for the truth? And so we've been chatting over here on the studio chat, and free will came up. And people think, well, yeah, but people have free will to think that they're going to be protected under the Father's wing. But guys, free will, Father gives it to you because he doesn't force you to choose him. It's your choice. But if you say it doesn't matter, he knows I love him, it does matter. And when we think we can't describe things to other people and we just get in arguments, what did Christ say? You may think you have all these gifts, all this knowledge, all this stuff, because people say, how come you can't convert everybody, Sheila? And I said, because it's a personal choice. And Father told me long ago, and I remember people wonder how I can say the same things that are in the books and everything else. I can tell you, when you're with the Father and he gives you a message about something, you never forget it. It's like it's just seared in your mind. And he said, Sheila, you keep trying to reach everybody. You can't reach everybody. You can love everybody, because Christ said, no matter what goes on for you, love them. That's what they need, because when you start affecting them, judging them, going after them, telling them what they're doing wrong, how are they going to choose the Father who loves them unconditionally? Because you're not even expressing love toward them. And so he said, but Sheila, let's say it's 1,000 people that it takes to touch a life to have them choose me. You could be talking to them as number 575. You could even be number 999, and you're not going to witness it. I need you to keep moving, Sheila. I need you to keep talking to other people. I need you to keep spreading the information. And that 575-999 has never left my mind, because I did. I just kept going back to the same people, trying to help them choose different. And it's a personal choice by them. It has nothing to do, I may not be the one to say what they need. And I can see in some of the comments, you guys are getting frustrated because you're trying so hard on members of the family and everything else. My Father has told me who to stop praying for. You know why? When I keep praying for them, the demonic activity is so severe with them that their lives become completely miserable, because they're trying so hard to keep them encased. And I didn't realize that was even possible. And so Juan is covering so much depth today. I'm so appreciative to be on at the same time. And I can see you guys saying, would Sheila please come out and say something? And guys, I can't even, I'm so in it when Juan's speaking. And this is true whether we're on a phone call or whether it's something like today. I want to hear it all. And I don't take notes. And afterwards I go, darn it, why didn't I take notes? Next time I'm going to take notes. And doggone it, because when you're in it with the Father, it's not about refocusing and getting out a pen off to the side and making other notes. I want to take it in. And so that's what I've been doing. So you guys don't worry about me. I'm good. And that's why it's really good to have it like this, so you're not seeing my face. Because people said when we were on at Nino, and this back a while ago, they said, gosh, Sheila's looking mad. Is Sheila mad about what's going on? No, Sheila's not mad. Sheila's deep in thought. And so there's no sense in you seeing me be deep in thought. And this works better with our connection, that I not be on camera today. And I'm fine with that. So bless you guys.
Well, I just want to make one comment that to both of you. I think, cerebrally, the way you've explained this, and I think hearing all this stuff about Satanists and this and that, but you guys have laid it out so beautifully, and now it's on our show and people can listen to it for a long time, that this is a belief system. Like Juan, you said, it doesn't matter if it's true or not, it's what they believe. So it's what drives them. And I think with people understanding what this belief system is, it really gives a lot more insight into why. Because sometimes people get caught up like, well, why are they doing this? And how it kind of doesn't matter. That's what they believe, and that's what's going on, and it's our job. The other thing I wanted to say is, to Sheila's point, you said about, free will. And I think that if you consider the people in the chat, and of course myself and Stu and a lot of other podcasters, nobody kind of convinced us. We actively sought the truth, and we went to places that would help provide those answers. So to your guys' point, you can't convince someone. They maybe you plant a seed and they want to then know more. But that's why I think so many people in the chat are so frustrated, because you have people you love and you want them to kind of get it and understand it. And unfortunately,
well, hold on. I want to say something right here. Let me just dive in for a second.
Yeah.
Christ is walking with his apostles and the 12. And there's an entourage around them as they would come and go to different communities. And so there'd be a crowd, a surge around them. And, you didn't have megaphones, and you didn't have, broadcasting systems and all that. And so the apostles would go to talk with the people, and they acted like a filter, those that got past them to get to Christ himself, with questions, with needs, etc. And so they were spreading the message even amongst the crowd and answering questions at a very personal level, kind of a conclave type of thing. And so at one point, when Christ had the apostles off to themselves, away from the crowds, and he knew what the murmurings were, he knew what the questions were that were being asked, he turns to the apostles and he says, "Who do men say that I am?" Because there's all this murmurings. He wants, he's taking in some input. You've been talking to the people in the crowds in this area. Who do they say that I am? And one of the apostles says, "Well, some say you're John the Baptist, who had been beheaded, the one who had anointed or baptized Christ before he began his ministry." Some said that you're Elijah, come back to, minister, etc. There was all sorts of different theories on who Christ was. Then Christ turns to Peter, and he says to Peter, he says, "Who do you say that I am?" And Peter says, "You're the Son of God." And Christ says, and he goes into a little bit of a spiel. God himself revealed a truth to Peter in his heart, in the midst of all the other chaos, confusion, everything else. God himself gave Peter an understanding. He heard all the same stories. He heard all the same conversations. But it was something that happened inside his heart. It wasn't something he read. It wasn't something that somebody else explained to him. He got some kind of a response from God himself in heaven, probably asked the same questions, but instead of asking other people, other disciples, he asked God himself, who is this man? Who is this person? And he got a direct personal answer from God himself. It's the same here. Within the audience, we can put out information, ideas, understand our enemies, history, everything else. But in the end, it's a personal thing. The scripture talks about one that would come to reconcile the nation and the individuals on this subject of sin, separation from God, that went all the way back to Adam. And they understood very clearly. That's why they had all these sacrifices. It was symbolic of a sacrifice that God himself would require to pay the penalty of sin, separation from God. And so they had all these ceremonies around that to reconcile a race, people, and individuals from their separation from God due to sin, in order to be able to come back in his presence, as Adam had enjoyed it prior to sin entering into the world. We individually have to reconcile ourselves with God Almighty in order to become able to come back into his presence. And by the way, you could be at a location where several people, dozens, hundreds of people die in the same incident. But when you enter the next world, it's very, very, very personal. It's very individual. It's not a crowd thing. Your situation before God, your judgment, your eternal circumstances are very precisely personal to you. And so while we look at things out across the world, things that we want to need to do, be counted on the right side of history, show up to be counted as President Trump has asked for on May 17th, and as he asked previously for on January 6th. And yet, at the end of the day, it's a very personal thing before God. Which side were you on? What had you done? And your reconciliation with God Almighty, accepting forgiveness of sin through Christ. Christ said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes unto the Father except by me. I'm the portal. I'm the gateway. Well, can I go through this portal or that portal? Can I do it with these magical acts? Can I do it by aligning with these people? When you get to leaving this world and entering the next, it's totally personal. A near-death experience, when people come back, even if other people around them died in the same incident, they're all dealt with individually, and you will be also. So you have to decide and make a life change commitment. Please God, he put on human flesh like we put on a coat. Who was he? It's the Father. Christ says, I and the Father am one. He who has seen me has seen the Father. So there's no difference at all, one to the other. It's just a human manifestation of divinity. And so when Christ, God, way and reconciles, because no man was found that could reconcile this sin against God. He personally takes the stead, provides a path for forgiveness, and then for us to, again, have personal contact with him. When Christ said to Peter, no man, no flesh has revealed this to you, but God himself, it was personal in his heart. I can make the introduction, but it's up to each person in this audience to pray the prayer. Please, Father, I don't understand all this stuff. There's a lot going on here, but I want to be in your heaven forever. That's what David said. I want to be in your courts forever. Please help me. And accepting that God is the only way to get there through Christ and his sacrifice. When you accept Christ into your heart and accept the forgiveness of the Father through that act, that gesture, then you can be reconciled, and in this world and the next have the promise of eternal life in heaven, as opposed to under judgment and separation from God, hell itself, with the devil and his angels, this whole crowd that loves evil. And but it's a personal choice. It's excruciatingly personal. Your parents can't do it for you. Your priest can't do it for you. Your best friend can't do it for you. It's individual. You have to choose life, choose God, and then if it's real, your actions don't buy your way to heaven, but your actions do prove, as you walk out your life in this world, which side you're truly on. And if you do things that are in alignment with God's purposes by faith, you show yourself to be a child of God by the way you live, by the way you act, by the way you make personal choices, and from time to time sacrifices. Is that clicking for you guys? That makes sense?
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, this free will is a beautiful gift we've all been given, but no one else can make these choices for you but yourself. And it's what path you have to follow is all down to you. And you mentioned precipice there, Juan. Can you just talk to us about, what you believe this precipice, scare event, near-death experience moment may be coming up for the people?
Stewie, right before we go into that, I want to mention there's a Hebrew word that confirms everything Juan just said. And that word in Hebrew is Echad. And Bill Morford, who transcribed the Hebrew into the One New Man Bible into English, he gave me that. He was told to prepare it 2 days before he found out I was to call him to meet. And when we met on our 7th anniversary of our first meeting. Father has put all of this together so I could put this in the new book. Eshad means absolute unity. The Trinity is false. The splitting into 3 is false. And he gave me the 2-page summary on this. This is back in 23. And I was able to put it in the beginning of the new book. And Eshad took up over 80 pages of the 100 pages of the personal letter, because absolute unity is what they've driven us away from. And I also want to mention from the comments that I got the last time we were on together, the ones that came out on Rumble afterwards, is that I can't believe this woman can take everything and make it spiritual and make it biblical. I don't think that any of this could be true, blah, 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 blah. I don't think we should listen to this woman. You see the fight we're in? If you don't think we're in a spiritual war, if you don't think we're dealing with good versus evil, if you don't think that the pilgrims knew what was going on because their children were being groomed, the fathers were being boiled in oil, the fathers were being burned at the stake, and the men were taking the guards and the royals were taking the women and the children for their own devices. If you don't think they were running away from that to get to this uninhabited land that the tribes were sent to, and it's not just America, First Peoples in Canada. I see all of your comments, guys, about all of the facts that now you got AK-47s in the hands of Chinese at your borders. Guys, this is why we haven't stood up. And so I'm looking at all the chat today to remind you of what was said to me last time. And I have prayed over the names of those handles of those people, because I don't know who those people are. And that simple prayer is, Father, I thank you for doing whatever it takes to speak to them so clearly, so deep into their heart and mind, that nothing that comes out of them is not your truth. Nothing that can come from them does not express your truth. Because, guys, it is a spiritual temple that we have to take down. And it is biblical. And that's the battle we are in. And it's the battle we've been in since the garden. And President Trump is willing for the whole world to stand and work on all of this. And now there's armchair quarterbacks trying to tell Trump what he should be focused upon. Out of people that we have trusted over time, people that we have thought were voices over time, but now they're trying to say how this all should be done. There's one general that just will not stop. There's 2 colonels that just will not stop. And now you guys are writing to me that, well, this is a whole different way that this should be going. This is not President Trump by himself. President Trump understands the war we are in. The 200 generals that brought him in 2015 understand the war that we are in. And my heart goes out to those of you who don't understand the war that we are in, because it is spiritual, it is biblical, and I have lived where you have lived. I had the corporation. I was going to be on ABC News. All these things, and I thought the world was pulling the rug out. Father just wanted me to go in, find out all of it for these days. It was a day I was getting the picture taken in my new suit with my hair done after the corporation was destroyed, to get a 5-year contract at ABC in San Diego. I would have been in the mainstream media. My corporation was medical legal. I would have been supporting the medical process in America. Guys, God took me out of all of it, out of corporate America, where I was a human resources instead of a personnel director, because as soon as I went to human resources, they started layoffs. We have watched this in our lifetimes go down to a level that it never should have gone to, because we became a silent majority. And I see how you guys are starting to say in the chat that we needed to be a voice in this. We all needed to do that, but they killed all the true speakers. And when they did it, they had a whole different plan going on. And so I really hope that the one message we can get across is, if you get tight with the Father, and I know you guys are laughing because I've been saying this 25 years on all the interviews that I can get on. If you don't get tight with the Father, you're not going to know the truth about the enemy. The only one that can tell you is him. And what he just said about Peter, that is true. And guys, that was before the Holy Spirit was revealed. But Father's plan is so tight that the same day, Sivan 6, when he sent Moses the 10 tablet, 10 on the tablet. When he did that, Sivan 6 is the same date. And let me look at this again. The Sivan 6 is the same date as when he sent the Holy Spirit. Nisan 14 is the same day our Christ was on the cross. 3 days later, Nisan 17, not from a Friday to a Sunday of Ishtar Easter that everybody celebrates and calls it resurrection. None of that is true. So all of that deceiving is what I was talking about a few moments ago. When you spend your time deceiving people with things you think are the truth and you don't know the truth. And when he just mentioned, that's why I wanted to tell you about Ishad. We've been lied to about the 3 split. Why? The Brahma is 3 men standing back to back. Then the Vishnu, then the Shiva, which is at the end of CERN, the WHO, the WEF, the UN, 6 legs, 6 arms, 3 in 1. It's a lie. What Juan just explained to you, I know is sounding foreign to you, but I want you to go ahead and look up that word, Ishad. It means absolute unity. They've spent all of their time dividing us so we wouldn't be able to unite. And at least a third, close to a half, of the points and the 45 points to destroy a nation are to destroy the family. Why? When you get the family fighting each other, which is where they have us, the generations fighting each other, you can only trust the government, not the parents and the grandparents. What did the Pilgrims put on the faith monument? The parents teaching the children and the grandparents mentoring. Why? Because they raised up great children. Why do you suppose they came to America before 1620? To arrive? They knew about the 20 in every century, and they were still captured, their money stolen 3 times before they got here, and they went ahead and came in the winter. Why? To get here by 1620 and not have their people. Guys, we're learning now what they've known for generations, for centuries. And so every time it gets too rough and people back away. The Q team is not new. The Q process is not new. Somebody wrote in and said there was a Q chapter in the Bible that was removed. I don't know about that. Juan may know about that.
It's the missing gospel of Q, that is, I believe.
That's what they're saying. There's a gospel of Q. And I don't know. I don't know what that is. But we've talked about the 5D communication, and that is Hebrew. That Father has given us the confirmation of that. And again, that video is on my website on the interviews page. Scroll down to the bottom and it just says, this is a video everyone wants Sheila to send them. Here it is. Just click on the link and you'll see 4 minutes and 30 seconds. And it will explain the whole 5 levels of communication and why nobody else can get it, because you can't get the 4th and 5th in the dimensions if you don't know the Lord. He has to tell you how to put the letters together, and he has to tell you the definition. And the one example that we used the last times we were together is the 3 eclipses. The last one went through 6 towns of Nineveh. Everybody goes, 6, that means beast, that means human, that means tent peg in that little video. But after all of that, what God said is, Sheila, 6 also means Ruach HaKodesh. That's what I want my people to know. What is Ruach HaKodesh in Hebrew? It is the tight connection with the Lord over all. That's the only connection that's going to get you through a storm, because you won't know. Father, he has saved me from 3 auto accidents in the past month. 18-wheelers trying to take me out, guys. I could go on and on and on. I could spend hours with you and tell you all the miracles he's committed in my life in the past 3 months. He still wants me here. Only he knows what else he wants me to do. But we're trying to make it so that you understand the depth of this goes all the way back to the very beginning. Nobody has taken on what President Trump is taking on since the Garden of Eden to this degree to get it done. Jefferson tried. President Jefferson tried. He created the Marines, sent them to the shores of Tripoli. Look at the Marine hymn. It's in there. You have to take care of the problems where they are, because they're bringing it here. So,
well,
anyway.
let me just chime right in there. By the way, Elijah, this great prophet. I mean, the stuff in his life is just stunning. What happened, but when the time for the challenge, the line in the sand, occurred with the priests of Baal, and Moloch, which, by the way, Moloch is depicted as a bull. And the horrors that they would do, they would bring a child, give it to the priest, and the priest, with great ceremony and pomp, would place it in the hands of this brass statue, this huge brass statue, and red hot from being in this fire built under it. And then it would, with cables, be pulled back with the arms and dropped into the belly of the beast. And that was the sacrifice thing, with great pomp and circumstance and the wailing and screaming of the crowd and everything else. Elijah came against that right there on their holy mountain dedicated to evil. He didn't do it down in town in Jerusalem. He didn't do it at a separate site. He did it at their sacrifice location. He took the fight to their gates of hell. And then the presence of God, the demonstration, the taking of Elijah's sacrifice over the servants of Baal and the priests of Baal was done right there next to it. We're not waiting for them to come to us. We're not trying to get them to come onto our holy ground and do it. We're taking it right to the gates of hell. That's what President Trump has been doing by, I believe, divine direction. And he said so. He believes he's here as an act of God to have survived the nation there at Butler. And so with all that in mind, imagine being called to be present. How many of the people that were there were people who'd never bent their knee to Baal, who were there to support Elijah at this critical moment? And how many of them were the ones that had been conned and deceived, even to the point of sacrificing their own children, their future, by the way, because for people as they would get older in that society, their future was their children, to help care for them in old age. They were sacrificing their future to these Baal and Moloch occult evil monsters. And so there was a line in the sand, did it right there at the gates of hell. There's people that don't believe we're going to make it through this moment, but by divine hand, and that's what President Trump is saying, we need divine assistance, divine protection, divine guidance to get through these moments ahead, even calling for this national rededication 49 days before the 4th of July. And what's the 50th day? The day after the beginning of the Jubilee season, to take back and re-own everything. What does Trump know that he alone fully knows about what has to happen next, what he's going to do, what they've set up? And before those next moments, he's giving us a call. We need to enter this next phase prayerfully, mindful that without God's blessing on our next actions, we would not make it through. That rededication, how many soldiers in the field waiting to go into battle at the crack of dawn after the barrage of missiles and bombs has softened up the enemy lines, but knowing that they're going to physically have to go in and take that area, the fight's going to get very real, and you're waiting in those moments before you act. How many of those soldiers have prayed a prayer? Still the same evil entity and his minions, and we're coming against evil, and that's what this moment is about. Trump may be in a senior position, yet this is about reestablishing the America that the Pilgrims covenanted. They covenanted on the boat before they ever stepped foot on the land. while they could see the land ahead, inside of it, they made a covenant with God about what the purposes of the people, the colony, would be that they were establishing there, and its place in the march of time, the heavenly promises to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob for a people that would be as the sand of the seashore for number, as the stars in the heaven for number, who would be a heritage dedicated to divine purposes as a blessing to Abraham and before God forever. And that's what this moment is about for us as a nation, but also, and even more importantly, as every individual, no matter what happens in the rest of the world, the rest of the country, the rest of the neighborhood, what's going on with you personally. And personal God, a personal dedication of your life, acceptance of the blood of Christ for your redemption, your purchase back from the penalty of sin. It's a personal God interacting with you every bit as much as in that whole crowd of apostles, in that whole crowd of people following and walking along with Christ. Everybody here needs a personal revelation, a personal Savior, your personal interaction with God Almighty through His Son, Jesus Christ, to be saved from the penalty of sin, which is hell, separation from God eternally, in the hands of these monsters burning together, or a perfect heaven with all the beauty, the splendor, unimaginable in the kingdom of God. That's what we want to be a part of. And we bring that into this reality with God's beauty, God's direction in this period now and through and after the fight. We will have the promised beauty in this world, health in this world, productivity in this world that we were created to walk out and build out, not just on this planet, but out across the solar system, the galaxy, the stars. Remember, Abraham was promised offspring that for number would be as the sand of the seashore. We haven't even had a dump truck load yet. And as the stars in the heaven, there's more stars in the heaven, many, 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 many trillions of times over than there is grains of sand on the beaches of all the seas in the world. It's hard to fathom, but that's the promise. Humanity's going to go on. We're going to get through this. You want to be on the right side as we go through this together.
Yeah, 100%. I just want to agree with Sheila, what she was saying there about just sitting there listening, because when we have guests on like yourselves, Juan and you, Sheila, you make our job so easy because it's just captivating just to sit here and listen. And it's amazing information. So, what I asked before, Juan, about, this biblical scare event, precipice moment, is this, do you think this will be a worldwide thing? Will it be an individual thing for all of us? What do you see coming for that? I've heard you talk about.
Let me answer that the way I didn't answer it properly a moment ago, but let me answer that now. And then I've got to go. I've got an appointment I have to go to here momentarily. Just like salvation is extremely personal, this near-death experience that we may all experience as a nation, which I believe is coming, is still excruciatingly personal at the same time. Will you make it through this? Is this the end for you individually or us as America? Will the devil have his way? And that's this precipice that we're at. The devil seeks all of our destruction, wants all of us to die. And if he can't have this world, he'd rather have the whole thing gone. In fact, at the time of the return of the Messiah, it's said in the scriptures that if Christ didn't return as he left in the clouds, if he didn't return, there would no flesh survive. That means animals, human, anything. This whole planet would be destroyed. The devil wants it all gone. If he can't have it, nobody gets it. And that's the time of the return of the Messiah, to put an end to all the fighting and to take control of the planet completely, and to put the devil and his minions, lock them into hell for 1,000 years. That's the way the scriptures read. And then to allow him out to test that generation for a period of time. There's a time of peace coming, but it's after this great conflict that we're coming up on right now. What does it look like? I would say that you can look in the aggregate of, is it a nuclear threat? You know, remember in Hawaii, during the first term of President Trump, everybody got on their cell phones and they heard the sirens going off in the distance, air raid sirens. And the message on your phone said that an intercontinental ballistic missile was headed towards Hawaii. Seek shelter. In other words, there's a nuclear bomb. It's headed here. It's going to destroy everything. Seek shelter immediately. And it went on for almost an hour. And people, you know, saying their goodbyes, trying to put their kids in ditches and places where the blast would go over the top of them, getting prepared. At the end, no nuclear bomb went off in Hawaii. But for that hour, there was terror. Will it hit Pearl Harbor? Will it hit the city? How big is the bomb? The mental gymnastics. How will I get away from it? Should I drive to the other side of the island? Am I safe on a different island? And all of the questions that went through there, the prayers, the cursing. I mentioned the other day on a show that I did, I remember the interview of a person who was in the jet as a passenger during the first term of President Reagan, when this 737 was taking off at Dulles Airport and hadn't been de-iced properly. And during the takeoff, as they lifted off, they couldn't gain altitude. And the flight lasted for about 30 seconds. And as they lost altitude, everybody in the plane could see that this was not, you know, they were going to crash. Everything's straining. And this person who was in the plane, he talked about, you know, how time slows down. You see everything in crisis moments and record things more precisely. And he looked around the aircraft, and people were both cursing and praying. They were holding hands, and they were waving their hands and fists in defiance. And the plane crashed, and that's the situation where the stewardess was in the icy Potomac, and a bystander jumped in, went out, got a hold of her, and pulled her to safety. And others survived also. This man said he had this revelation in that moment. He had a word from God. And he said the people that were cursing and screaming were screaming at God. They were damning what was occurring in their lives. Others were praying, holding hands, praying for those that they wouldn't be there to continue to raise, for their safety, praying for others, comforting the people next to them. They lived, their actions mimicked who they were in their heart. And in that instant, what was in them came out. For America, we're going to see the best and the worst of everyone as we go through this near-death experience, dark moment ahead, and across the world. And what this space of prayer, starting on the 17th of May, is really all about is preparing ourselves as a nation for something ahead, to get on the right side of history, to have our hearts in the right place, to rededicate ourselves like warriors going into battle before we leave our place of safety, and the quiet calm before the fight goes in full thing. Right now, we're just hearing the missiles going overhead, and that shock and awe to the enemies who have been doing these evil horrors out across the world. And shortly now, we'll be engaging directly, including at the most personal level for many in this society, your retirement, your bank account, your taxes, the ability to buy gas at the gas station, and get a check from your employer to pay for your bills. There's great drama ahead. And this is a gift from God for us to be able to prepare for that moment, get our hearts in the right place, our eternity secured, so that we can go through these next steps together and help those around us through these next steps in a reasoned, intelligent way. Come, let us reason together to get to the right answers so that we can reformulate our society, remove the dross, remove the things that aren't truly who we are or intend to be as a people, going all the way back to the Pilgrims, recovenanting with God Almighty in heaven about our purposes moving forward, not just for ourselves, but as missionaries to the whole world, to bring peace, justice, righteousness, that these monsters have been inflicting on the world, including our own families, and to get on the right side of history.
Amazing.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah. Well, just quickly before you go, the question I keep getting asked a lot by people is what's going on with the chemtrails. So now there's a lot of talk about who's in control of those, whether we've taken them over. Can you just a quick word on that?
On the witch trials?
Chemtrails.
Oh, chemtrails. There's layers concerning them. There is a military use where they can be used to interfere with intercontinental ballistic missiles on their return descent side. They can be used in combat areas where we're running aircraft, like a submarine. There's different temperatures. There's literally rivers of water that are flowing, currents that are flowing in the ocean, and where you have, say, a temperature differential with water flowing that's, let's say 48 degrees, and just a short distance on the other side of it, water that's flowing that's 56 degrees. Well, they'll have a crack in the glass. Would be the way to visualize it in your mind. And when sound waves, sonar waves hit that differential, it's like hitting that crack in the glass with light, and it's refracted in a different direction. It bounces a different direction. You can't see clearly on the other side of that temperature differential. So submarines tow these huge arrays on a long cable behind them. And now they can look at stuff on the other side of these temperature zones from more than one direction, and kind of 3D it. And so they can get a better image of what's on the other side of that broken zone. When we have these artificial materials that are put into the atmosphere, we can obscure aircraft moving on the other side of it in a combat zone, so that ground radars, missiles, especially simplistic ones, can't easily target something on the other side. And we can electrify it to cause it to resonate with frequencies that make it hard for some of these systems to work. When intercontinental ballistic missiles are coming in, we can, in pinpoint areas, electrify those areas, cause the particles that we've put there to jiggle in such a way that they act like a harder surface, and the missiles can't get through it at these high speeds without burning up, blowing up. Those areas can also be used to move energy waves of all different types and reflect stuff off of it to, like a big mirror, bounce energy signals. Think of like a laser type signal, only of different wavelengths. It could be light, it could be sound, everything in between, and reflects off of it. Tennis ball hitting the ground and bouncing up, and hit places that are over the horizon, greatly distant. So it has a military application. The other side of it, though, that's very disconcerting is that the materials that are used, aluminum oxide being extremely prevalent, which is just the material used for sandpaper, but it salts the earth. An enemy would salt the earth when they conquered an area, and then if you came to grow crops there, you couldn't grow them anymore. So they'd bring huge volumes of salt and plow it into the ground and leaven the ground with that salt. You couldn't just go in and pull the salt out. You couldn't pull the grains out. That area would become lifeless and not grow food. And in an agrarian society, agrarian world, if you couldn't grow food, you couldn't live there. You had to go somewhere where you could grow food, where food could grow. The earth in this operation is being salted to make it less habitable everywhere. Kill the trees, kill the crops, etc. And for our protection, allegedly, the earth is being salted predominantly over America, where these intercontinental ballistic missiles would purportedly come in. It was for a season. There's other new technology that's coming online right now. This exact second, stopping the spraying, President Trump is very aware of both the good and the bad. There's a window here, the generals behind Trump, very aware, where we're at maximum risk of, including as the technology changes from intercontinental ballistic missiles to hypersonic. Why did everybody go to hypersonic? They skip at the edge of the atmosphere. They travel slower. They're less susceptible to hitting the wall, if you will, of this micromaterial that's sprayed in the air. They go slow enough that going through it doesn't tear the vehicle apart, and they can be steered. Very hard to hit because with intercontinental ballistic missiles, it's just a bullet. It's just free falling back on a given trajectory. Very little maneuvering possible. You'll put out other MIRVs at high altitude, smaller bomblets, and from intercontinental ballistic missile, and maybe one missile breaks into 14. And they're all aimed at different targets in the area. But again, it's just bullets as they get down to the lower atmosphere, and they can be targeted individually and taken out with this electrified layer because they're traveling so fast. They're fragile. The new stuff with hypersonic missiles and steerable and going slower is still very fast, but not near as fast, and designed to go through these areas. So the nature of war, there was a time when a catapult was really dangerous, and then people constructed their buildings and castles so that catapults alone couldn't get through, and siege things could be brought up against castle, and people put up moats to make it so you couldn't get right up against the wall. This aerial spraying, its season is coming to an end, and but we're at a most dangerous moment near term right now. It's probably not the time to stop before we transition these other technologies, and we're at maximum risk for all of these missiles, which have been built by a number of powers across the world to threaten America. So, I could talk a lot longer. I'm being a little bit generic, but a lot of the audience wouldn't know all the minutiae, the details. Some of them do, but I want to know this, I want to know that technical detail. It just bore the rest of the audience. Just suffice to know that where it needs to be known, the president, the generals who got him here and helped him and are still helping now that have gamed it out, have a window where we're working with what we have. There's an objective to change, and it is changing, and the technology is allowing for other ways to deal with these threats. New types of lasers and defense systems that aren't fully online, and until they are fully online, this is not the time to stop for the moment, but it is going to come to a stop. Is that adequate for you?
That's the best answer I've heard so far.
Ever.
So amazing. I'm going to click that and post that everywhere. Amazing. Thank you.
So let me say a prayer with everyone, and then I've got to run. I'm late for a meeting, and the folks have been very courteous. They know that I was finishing a broadcast here. So, Father God, we thank you for your patience in dealing with us. We thank you for coming for us in the form of your Son, for putting on human flesh and walking amongst us. We thank you for your word so that we can understand how you think and what you plan for us, and hear your promises to us as children of Adam, as children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, as children of you, Father God, through your Son. We ask you to personally deal with each one of us, that we would have a personal experience with you, Father God, that it doesn't have to be something that anyone else in the world knows, but that you visit us in our heart, and that you help us to understand how to serve you and how to engage with you, how to receive eternal life through your Son and walk this out in this world and the next. We pray that you would give us clear minds to receive understanding from you, to just like Peter, even when everybody else is still having a discussion that's not accurate, misunderstanding, that you gave Peter a clear understanding, a moment of clarity, and that it was right there in the presence of Christ, our Savior, that he understood these things in a way that everybody else around didn't. We pray that you would personally deal with each one of us, reveal yourself to us, give us an understanding, saving knowledge of you, Father God, that suits your purposes, and then that we be given physical strength in this world, spiritual strength from your presence inside of us. We receive you into our hearts. We pray that you would give us the gift of being able to walk in agreement with your ways, in agreement with your purposes in this world, Father God, and the next, so that we can be instruments and tools of beauty, of righteousness and goodness, of truth to the world around us, so that we can be ambassadors of you through Christ to the world, to bring peace where there's war, right thinking where people are in confusion and chaos, which hell is a place where reason doesn't exist. We want to be a reasonable people. We want a reasonable world. We want logic and purity and wholeness. And we know that it only comes from you, Father God, that we ourselves are incapable of creating it without your divine hand. And so we dedicate ourselves to you and your purposes, Father God, and ask for your divine protection and provision, and assistance in walking out true faith, true life in a godly way, according to your will, your purposes, Father God. We ask all of this in Jesus' name, our Savior, you, Father God, one with your Son, indistinguishably, uh, uh, not to be seen as two, but as one. According to your will, Father God, help us to see that with spiritual eyes, understand it in ways that please you. We ask this in Jesus' name. By the blood of Christ, make it so. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Juan. That's
Beautiful.
amazing. Right, we'll let you go. That was absolutely brilliant. If you'd like to come back on, we'll maybe prime the chat and get a load of questions for you. But absolutely superb. Thank you for joining us today, sir.
Thank you.
Restored Republic via GCR update. Just like the investigation into the McDonald's meat supply company was shut down in the 1960s-1970s, congressional hearings on Linda McDonald's CIA mind control wouldn't release their findings, the closure of McDonald's restaurants didn't happen either. April 2021, McDonald's will close hundreds of locations in Walmart stores. Thursday, August 26, 2021, McDonald's chain closing globally, human meat, body parts found in food. B. What we thought we knew, but didn't really know and now are supposed to know but don't have a clue. With clones, doubles, made-up movies Hollywood style and Trump's military alliance throwing more popcorn at us, it gets so confusing. On December 10, 2024, the Supreme Court ruled on the Brunson case, confirming what millions have suspected all along: the 2020 election was rigged and Trump won. Trump was never legitimately removed as U.S. president and this decision confirmed it. Quantum connected on Telegram. On Monday, June 9, 2026, Tesla MedBed centers activate in key U.S. locations. Regeneration beds start priority sessions for veterans and rescued survivors. Quantum Life Force Energy triggers cellular self-repair, eliminating pain and beginning organ regeneration with early miraculous reports. EBS, blackout, martial law, lockdowns, Monday, June 8, 2026. What you will see first: Trump G-class revelation on Telegram. 1. Local power flickers followed by identical maintenance notices across unrelated providers. 2. News channels looping the same frame. No live panels. No call INS. 3. Payment apps timing out at login, then reopening with a new terms screen. 4. Airport boards that show on time while terminals are held at the gate. 5. A short tone on radio and TV, then a quiet screen. Do not panic. That is the bridge. What IT means: the blackout is the curtain so the crew can change the set. Martial law is the lock so no one runs the old tricks. The arrests are the receipts that everything you suspected was not only real, it was systemic. The currency reset is the power cord finally plugged into the right outlet. Debt freedom is the first breath after years underwater. E-Global Currency Reset, Monday, June 8, 2026, U.S. debt clock shocker. Blockchain wins as we the people and asset-backed currency vision spark national debate. On Sunday, 7th of June, an emergency broadcast system, EBS, activation was said to be locked in at 72 hours or less, to Tuesday, 9th of June. EBS window for lockdown between Wednesday 10th of June and Saturday 20th of June. Mass arrests and prosecution, Monday, June 8, 2026. For decades, victims of mass atrocities, political persecution, torture, forced disappearances, and systematic abuse have waited for justice. Today, international legal organizations are intensifying efforts to expose those responsible and bring them before the law. JFK Secrets on Telegram. At the center of that fight stands Trial International, an organization dedicated to investigating and prosecuting some of the most serious crimes recognized under international law. Crimes against humanity are among the gravest offenses a person can commit. Unlike ordinary crimes, they are carried out as part of widespread or systematic attacks directed against civilian populations. These crimes transcend borders, governments, and political systems because they strike at the very foundations of human dignity. What makes crimes against humanity unique is that they do not require a state of war. They can be committed during peacetime and are not limited to attacks against a specific race, religion, nationality, or ethnic group. Their defining characteristic is the large-scale targeting of civilians. The modern legal framework for prosecuting these crimes was born from the ashes of World War II. The concept first appeared in the 1945 Nuremberg Charter, which established the foundation for holding individuals personally accountable for atrocities committed under the authority of governments or powerful organizations. Since then, international law has evolved through major tribunals and treaties, including the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, and the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. One principle remains central: individuals can be held personally responsible for crimes against humanity, regardless of rank, position, or political influence. Trial International works to ensure that accountability is more than a promise. The organization provides legal support to victims seeking justice through domestic courts, international tribunals, the United Nations human rights mechanisms, and regional human rights courts. Its mission is twofold: helping victims have their voices heard and pursuing legal action against perpetrators who believe they would never face consequences. Using international legal mechanisms and the principle of universal jurisdiction, Trial International supports investigations, files criminal complaints, and pushes judicial systems to prosecute those responsible for mass atrocities. For countless victims around the world, justice has been delayed for years, sometimes decades. Yet the pursuit continues. The message behind international human rights law is clear: no government, military leader, organization, or individual is above accountability when crimes against humanity are committed. History has shown that truth can be buried, evidence can be hidden, and victims can be silenced, but justice remains a force that continues to pursue those responsible, no matter how much time has passed. Guru Information and Intel, Monday, June 8, 2026. They removed the copper. And we know why. 107 on Telegram. In the past, swimming pools, bathtubs, and water pipes were made of copper. Why? Because copper is extremely antibacterial. It naturally purified the water without needing chlorine. When water flowed through copper pipes, it became electrically charged. People absorbed those copper ions while swimming or bathing, and their bodies benefited directly from it. Old farmers even put copper in their livestock's drinking troughs to keep the water pure and healthy. Today, everything has been replaced with plastic and chlorine. J. What we think we know as of 2s. June 9, 2026, Monday, June 8, 2026, breaking alert: Bill O'Reilly demands criminal prosecution of E. Jean Carroll after $7 million funding bombshell. Monday, June 8, 2026, boom. SCOTUS showdown: Supreme Court poised to end late mail ballot counting as America fights to restore Election Day integrity. Monday, June 8, 2026, bombshell alert: Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent orders massive bank audits by IRS in $18 billion Minnesota welfare laundering scandal. Monday, June 8, 2026, energy mafia exposed: Attorney General Ken Paxton detonates the global energy cartel, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street accused of illegal market sabotage. Monday, June 8, 2026, RFK Jr. exposes the Ozempic conspiracy: how Congress, Big Pharma, and foreign profiteers engineered a $3 trillion scam against the American people. Monday, June 8, 2026, global bombshell: top secret files leaked, the untouchable Trump dynasty, 130 years of ruthless power plays that hijacked global money flows and forged an $8 billion empire no enemy could kill. Monday, June 8, 2026, special report: 20 red pill conspiracy theories they don't want you talking about. Monday, June 8, 2026, January 6 was a DNC planned event to overthrow the U.S. government. Newly hidden FBI documents released by FBI Director Cash confirm, not only did the FBI stage January 6 5 months before it happened while the DNC planned to overthrow the United States government if Trump won, provoke a breakdown on January 6 to disrupt the proceedings and prevent the vote from going through. But Christopher Wray also had 274 federal agents embedded at the official proceedings of January 6 and had federal agents infiltrating chat rooms months before January 6 orchestrating for the overthrow of the U.S. government. United States Representative Clay Higgins, vindicated Rep. Clay Higgins, Christopher Wray was not only involved in the actions on J6 from within, he had over 200 agents embedded, dressed as Trump supporters, before the doors were even opened. When you track the text threads and the communications within those groups and trace the origins of suggestions of potential violence or an active occupation of the Capitol on January 6, you'll find that those messages were led by members who turned out to be FBI agents infiltrating the groups. The FBI's involvement was deep, not just on J6, but in the days, weeks, and months prior. The 17th letter on Telegram. Phase 2, Strands 5 to 8 activate. Telepathic receptivity. Conscious cellular control. The ability to direct your own biology with thought. Phase 3, Strands 9 to 12 activate. Full sovereignty. Connection to the quantum field. Abilities that have no name in modern language because they were erased from human memory. The process takes 6 sessions over 12 weeks. Each session builds on the last. Each activation is permanent and irreversible. The first 200 participants in the Genesis program are no longer the same species they were when they entered. They are what humanity was always meant to become. Voter fraud Monday, June 8, 2026. Voter fraud. California, CA is blocking a federal audit of its voter rolls. DOJ sues CA over denying access to voter records. CA Secretary of State Shirley Weber was sued in 20,255 after repeated requests for voter registration records. A district judge dismissed the case in Jan. 2026 with the DOJ appealing it to the Ninth Circuit with arguments heard in May. No rulings have been made at this time. What is CA hiding? Fraud. Pastor Bob Joyce on Telegram. Monday, June 8, 2026. Voter fraud. California, how are Democrats cheating in LA? Let me show you. There are 26 registered voters at this toilet in Los Angeles. I'm not kidding. I have the voter records. See for yourself. The only thing here is a stinky porta-john inside an empty parking lot. No homes. No mailboxes. No businesses. Yet 26 people are casting ballots here. Straight up voter fraud out in the open. This just a glimpse of what's happening under Gavin Newsom. This is why California desperately needs voter ID, and we must pass the SAVE Act now. Shadow of Ezra on Telegram. So many people have gotten either multiple ballots, they've gotten ballots for themselves differentiating between their maiden name and their married name. People have gotten ballots for their children when they've never even registered to vote in the state itself. Democrats use these to ballot harvest, I guarantee it. Democrats are rigging our elections with mail-in ballots, ban them. JD Vance on Telegram. Monday, June 8, 2026. Voter fraud. California. Here we go. The Los Angeles Times is admitting that yes, tens of thousands of mail-in ballots did get processed for only Mayor Karen Bass and Nitya Raman, but it was a glitch. They say the system just glitched for a minute and didn't process any ballots for Spencer Pratt, but really there were ballots for Spencer, they just didn't get processed during the glitch. No, we don't believe you. This is fraud and Democrats are cheating. It was the result of a lag in an automated collection of the data in which there was one data collection that captured votes in a single batch of votes for Bass and Raman, and then about 1 minute later, the collection of the rest of that same batch of votes. Folks I spoke to also said there is no fraud. But again, there was no batch of votes without any Pratt votes. There was sort of a 1 minute variation between the upload of Bass and Raman votes and Pratt votes on some media websites. Officials and others who have reviewed the data say that is not any proof of fraud. There was no fraud. Again, yeah right. We need a federal audit into California elections. Project Odin Martial Law on Telegram. Monday, June 8, 2026. Voter fraud. Massachusetts, Dr. Shiva exposes that up to 100,000 ballots were missing from the Massachusetts 2020 election, including the ballot images, with the Secretary of State's office caught on tape saying that they didn't have them, which eliminates any type of audit. Diebold software, that is implemented in today's election software since 2001, has a weighted vote feature that secretly shifts votes from one candidate to another in real time with no obvious tampering required, which allows a vote to be worth more than one vote, per one person, introducing decimals. New versions of election management systems were released around mid-2020, included options to disable or hide these manipulation tools, making audits nearly impossible. More votes than voters recorded in multiple instances during the MA 2020 primary/election cycle, and this is why votes were found across the country with fractional vote tallies. Just another method of how our elections are stolen, especially in 2020. Gitmo TV on Telegram. Monday, June 8, 2026. Voter fraud. California, the DOJ has announced they are pursuing several election fraud investigations with the FBI in California. The longer they count, the less they count. How is that possible? The Democrats manufactured this by design. The election cheat machine in California is so wildly unconstitutional and fraudulent it's not even funny. Nobody believes that Steve Hilton isn't in the lead for governor. Nobody believes Nitya Raman is more popular than Spencer Pratt. People registered to vote at your local park or porta potty are real voters. Nobody believes it should take months for votes to be counted. Require ID to vote. Count on election night. That's not controversial. Every serious democracy on earth manages to do it. California should too. Steve Bannon on Telegram. Monday, June 8, 2026. Boom. The biggest drug traffickers in the world were the royal family and the Vatican. Great awakening now on Telegram. In a realm shrouded in mystery and power plays, some tales remain best-kept secrets hidden from public scrutiny by the elite. Yet whispers pull back the curtain on a chilling tale connecting the British royal family, the Vatican, and the global drug trade. Patriots brace for revelations that expose these forbidden connections. In politics, nothing happens by accident. If it happens, it was planned that way. A complex web links royal halls, Vatican chambers, and Asian opium dens in a conspiracy dance with shadows. The Opium Wars were no simple economic battle but an elite strategy for control. 2025 revelations indicate the British royals had active interest in opium as a tool to subdue nations. Royalty allegedly profited from this dark trade, with shadows persisting today. The Vatican's role shocks further. The Holy See allegedly engaged in drug trade to finance secret missions. Testimonies point to unholy interests beneath spiritual facades tied to the Golden Triangle. These stories blend drama and secrets, questioning real power holders. Discernment is vital, separating fact from fiction as Trump supporters fight the deep state. The Vatican and royals' alleged drug trade involvement creates a narrative of alliances and control. Caution and evidence guide the quest for truth amid elite manipulation whispers. Patriots must stay vigilant against these hidden forces as the Great Awakening advances transparency over cabal control.
Hello Patriots, I'm at Restored Republic via a GCR update compiled by Judy Byington. Monday, June 8th and Sunday, June 7th updates. Monday, June 8th situation update, Byington bombshell report, blackouts, martial law, global currency reset in progress. Prepare for 10-day internet, bank, credit, debit card closure. Politics before it's news. Monday, June 8th, situation update. Boom, Judy Byington bombshell report. Restored Republic via a GCR update as of Monday, June 8th, situation update. We the People News, situation update featuring Restored Republic. Sunday, June 7th, situation update. Judy Byington, Michael Jaco, Gene Decode, and Juana Savin. Nino, final act. 6/8/26, 72 hours. Hell breaks loose. Prophecy before it's news. Sunday, June 7th. Boom, Judy Byington bombshell report. Restored Republic via a GCR as of 7th of June. What we thought we knew but didn't really know, now we're supposed to know but don't have a clue. With clones, doubles, made-up movies Hollywood style, and Trump's military alliance throwing more popcorn at us, it gets so confusing. On December 10th, 2024, the Supreme Court ruled on the Brunson case, confirming what millions have suspected all along. The 2020 election was rigged and Trump won. Trump was never legitimately removed as U.S. president, and this decision confirmed it. Quantum Connected on Telegram. EBS blackout, martial law lockdowns. Monday, June 8th, what you will see first. Trump D-class revelation on Telegram. 1. Local power flickers, followed by identical maintenance notices across unrelated providers. News channels looping, the same frame. No live panels, no call-ins. Payment apps timing out at login, then reopening with a new terms screen. Airport boards that show on time while terminals are held at the gate. A short tone on radio and TV, then a quiet screen. Do not panic. That is the bridge. What it means. The blackout is the curtain so the crew can change the set. Martial law is the lock so no one runs the old tricks. The arrests are the receipts that everything you suspected was not only real, it was systematic. The currency reset is the power cord finally plugged into the right outlet. Debt freedom is the first breath after years underwater. Global currency reset. Monday, June 8th. Blockchain wins as We the People and asset-backed currency vision spark national debate. On Sunday, June 7th, an emergency broadcast system activation was said to be locked in at 72 hours or less to Tuesday, June 9th. EBS window for lockdown between Wednesday the 10th and Saturday, June 20th.
For decades, victims of mass atrocities, political persecution, torture, forced disappearances, and systematic abuse have waited for justice. Today, international legal organizations are intensifying efforts to expose those responsible and bring them before the law. JFK Secrets on Telegram. At the center of that fight stands Trial International, an organization dedicated to investigating and prosecuting some of the most serious crimes recognized under international law. Crimes against humanity are among the gravest offenses a person can commit. Unlike ordinary crimes, they are carried out as part of widespread or systematic attacks directed against civilian populations. These crimes transcend borders, governments, and political systems because they strike at the very foundations of human dignity. They include murder, extermination, enslavement, torture, imprisonment, persecution, enforced disappearances, apartheid, and other inhumane acts that intentionally cause severe physical or psychological suffering. What makes crimes against humanity unique is that they do not require a state of war. They can be committed during peacetime and are not limited to attacks against a specific race, religion, nationality, or ethnic group. Their defining characteristic is the large-scale targeting of civilians. The modern legal framework for prosecuting these crimes was born from the ashes of World War II. The concept first appeared in the 1945 Nuremberg Charter, which established the foundation for holding individuals personally accountable for atrocities committed under the authority of governments or powerful organizations. Since then, international law has evolved through major tribunals and treaties, including the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, and the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. One principle remains central. Individuals can be held personally responsible for crimes against humanity, regardless of rank, position, or political influence. Trial International works to ensure that accountability is more than a promise. The organization provides legal support to victims, seeking justice through domestic courts, international tribunals, the United Nations human rights mechanisms, and regional human rights courts. Its mission is twofold: helping victims have their voices heard and pursuing legal action against perpetrators who believed they would never face consequences. Using international legal mechanisms and the principle of universal jurisdiction, Trial International supports investigations, files criminal complaints, and pushes judicial systems to prosecute those responsible for mass atrocities. For countless victims around the world, justice has been delayed for years, sometimes decades, yet the pursuit continues. The message behind international human rights law is clear. No government, military leader, organization, or individual is above accountability when crimes against humanity are committed. History has shown that truth can be buried, evidence can be hidden, and victims can be silenced. But justice remains a force that continues to pursue those responsible, no matter how much time has passed.
Guru Information and Intel. Monday, June 8th, they removed the copper, and we know why. 107 on Telegram. In the past, swimming pools, bathtubs, and water pipes were made of copper. Yes, I actually remember that. People preferred to have copper piping, and some people did, and then they started to switch over to something that was not as durable. Why? Because copper is extremely antibacterial. It naturally purified the water without needing chlorine. When water flowed through copper pipes, it became electrically charged. People absorbed those copper ions while swimming or bathing, and their bodies benefited directly from it. Old farmers even put copper in their livestock's drinking troughs to keep the water pure and healthy. Today, everything has been replaced with plastic and chlorine. What we think we know as of Tuesday, June 9th. Monday, June 8th, we have a link. Breaking alert, Bill O'Reilly demands criminal prosecution of E. Jean Carroll after a $7 million funding bombshell. Boom, SCOTUS showdown. Supreme Court poised to end late mail ballot counting as America fights to restore Election Day integrity. Bombshell alert. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent orders massive bank audits by IRS in $18 billion Minnesota welfare laundering scandal. Video. Monday, June 8th, Energy Mafia exposed. Attorney General Ken Paxton detonates the global energy cartel. BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street accused of illegal market sabotage. Monday, June 8th, RFK Jr. exposes the Ozempic conspiracy. How Congress, Big Pharma, and foreign profiteers engineered a $3 trillion scam against the American people. Global bombshell. Top secret files leaked. The untouchable Trump dynasty. 130 years of ruthless power plays that hijacked global money flows and forged an $8 billion empire. June 8th, January 6th was a DNC planned event to overthrow the U.S. government. Newly hidden FBI documents released by FBI Director Cash confirm. Not only did the FBI stage January 6th, while the DNC planned to overthrow the United States government if Trump won, provoke a breakdown on January 6th to disrupt the proceedings and prevent the vote from going through. But Christopher Wray also had 274 federal agents embedded at the official proceedings of January 6th and had federal agents infiltrating chat rooms months before January 6th, orchestrating for the overthrow of the U.S. government. United States Representative Clay Higgins vindicated. Representative Clay Higgins. Christopher Wray was not only involved in the actions on J6 from within, he had over 200 agents embedded, dressed as Trump supporters, before the doors were even opened. When you track the text threads and the communications within those groups, trace the origins of suggestions of potential violence or an active occupation of the Capitol on J6, you'll find that these messages were led by members who turned out to be FBI agents, infiltrating the groups. The FBI's involvement was deep, not just on J6, but in the days, weeks, and months prior. 17th letter on Telegram. That's a direct attack on the American people by our own FBI.
Morning. It's Tuesday, the 9th of June, 2026. So much is going on. When you look at what's happening in the mayoral elections in California, for those people that are still fast asleep and still believe that none of the elections are rigged, this one is that obvious and that in your face. If you don't see it, you're not asleep, you're mentally deranged, because it is that obvious. There are many people that I hear, commentators, saying, well, the 2020 elections you can't accept. No, we can't accept them because they were rigged. And it was very, very obvious to those people who are awakened. For those who are asleep, they can't see anything. So, what's happening right now in California is to wake those people up, because it is so obvious, so in your face, that if you can't see it now, you need to check in to see if you've got a brain cell left. Morning, Drew.
Good morning, Charlie. Good morning, everyone. Following yesterday's earthquakes, a magnitude 6.1 earthquake struck off Cuba's northwest coast. Tremors were reportedly felt across parts of Cuba, Mexico, and Florida. Sounds like things are getting a bit shaky, Charlie.
Certainly does, and my heart goes out to the people of the Philippines and also to the people of Cuba. When you have an earthquake like this, it shakes the place up. It does a lot of damage. It takes lives, and in many cases, many lives. The infrastructure in the Philippines and in Cuba is not great. So when there's an earthquake, it has a very, very damning effect on the people who live there, and it is devastating for them. My next story is about Albania and Sazan Island. I know Albania. I've been there. If you know anything about the Albanian people, they're tough. And I'm sure that Jared Kushner has never come up against people like that before. Jared Kushner did a backhanded deal with the government to buy Sazan Island. You might think, well, just another island. No, it's a small island. It's about 4.5 kilometers long, just over 1.5 kilometers wide. It's a small place, but it has 700,000 people living on it. And the Israelis, for some reason, have moved in to temporary accommodation there. Bad move. These people haven't done any research about the Albanians. They've risen up, and you don't want to upset them. These are extremely violent people if you upset them. In Charlie's word, they don't fuck about. And very, very quickly, as the people rose up, not just on Sazan Island, but also in Tirana, the capital, there were hundreds of thousands of people marching against this, to such an extent that the government have now frozen the $4 billion that came in from Jared Kushner. Now, Jared Kushner is just saying, oh, it's a nice island that my wife and I want to build a resort on. Bullshit. Absolute bullshit. That island controls the shipping that goes from the Mediterranean up between Italy and Albania. Completely controls it. And on top of it, there is over 3,500, I think 3,600 bunkers, nuclear bunkers on a small island from the Cold War. This is strategic, but the people have seen through it. This isn't an investment in Albania. This is they're trying to steal it for control, as they always do. Otherwise, you wouldn't suddenly move in lots of Israelis. Why would you do that? It'll all unfold very, very quickly, and it won't be in favour of Jared Kushner. I can assure you, these Albanians don't mess about. Be very, very careful. Drew.
Next up, apparent easing of tensions between Israel and Iran after days of uncertainty. Reports suggest both sides have stepped back from further escalation. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has publicly credited President Trump for helping reduce tensions and continues to kiss butt for he has no friends. For now, many around the world are hoping diplomacy continues and that peace prevails over conflict.
Well, what's actually happening between Iran and Israel is very, very different from what we're hearing. I said to you yesterday, Israel was hit very, very hard. So they need to step back and they need a ceasefire. They lost 1,000 top brass from the military over the weekend. And they'll put out a narrative like a wounded animal. Oh, no, we thank Mr. Trump for helping us. Absolute BS. This guy is a surreptitious, evil person. The truth always comes out in the end. My final story is about the interview that happened between a Russian journalist and a European diplomat. And the Russian journalist just asked a very simple question. You talk about European values. What are they? And the European was struggling to actually mention a European value. So the Russian gave him some help. He said, your values are homosexuality, paedophilia, Satanism, and your legal system. I've never seen a guy so embarrassed in all my life. A Russian got it bang on point. I'll leave you with that thought. That was the news on Tuesday, the 9th of June, 2026.
Voter fraud. Monday, the 8th of June, 2026. Voter fraud, California. California is blocking a federal audit of its voter rolls. DOJ sues California over denying access to voter records. IAA Secretary of State Shirley Weber was sued in 20255 after repeated requests for voter registration records. A district judge dismissed the case in January 2026, with the DOJ appealing it to the Ninth Circuit with arguments heard in May. No rulings have been made at this time. What is California hiding? Fraud. Pastor Bob Joyce on Telegram, Monday the 8th of June 2026, Voter Fraud, California. How are Democrats cheating in LA? Let me show you. There are 26 registered voters at this toilet in Los Angeles. I'm not kidding. I have the voter records. See for yourself. The only thing here is a stinky port, a John inside an empty parking lot, no homes, no mailboxes, no businesses. Yet 26 people are casting ballots here. Straight up voter fraud out in the open. This just a glimpse of what's happening under Gavin Newsom. This is why California desperately needs voter ID, and we must pass the SAVE Act now. Shadow of Ezra on Telegram. Monday the 8th of June 2026, Voter Fraud, California. American MV Sue Matsu says his dad was mailed a mail-in ballot by California in Georgia. My dad, who hasn't lived in California for 16 years, received a ballot sent to his Georgia address. Not forwarded but sent to his Georgia address. A new lawsuit by Judicial Watch explains why. They are suing the state of California for having 873,000 ghost voters in California. That's hundreds of thousands of people, inactive voters, on California's voter rolls. Remember, my dad is not the only one that has experienced this. So many other people in my comment section on other social media platforms. So many people have gotten either multiple ballots, they've gotten ballots for themselves, differentiating between their maiden name and their married name. People have gotten ballots for their children when they've never even registered to vote in the state itself. Democrats use these to ballot harvest, I guarantee it. Democrats are rigging our elections with mail-in ballots. Ban them. J.D. Vance on Telegram. Monday the 8th of June 2026. Voter Fraud, California. Here we go. The Los Angeles Times is admitting that yes, tens of thousands of mail-in ballots did get processed for only Mayor Karen Bass and Nithya Raman, but it was a glitch. They say the system just glitched for a minute and didn't process any ballots for Spencer Pratt, but really there were ballots for Spencer. They just didn't get processed during the glitch. No, we don't believe you. This is fraud and Democrats are cheating. It was the result of a lag in an automated collection of the data in which there was one data collection that captured votes in a single batch of votes for Bass and Rahman. And then, about 1 minute later, the collection of the rest of that same batch of votes. Folks I spoke to also said there is no fraud. But again, there was no batch of votes without any Pratt votes. There was sort of a 1 minute variation between the upload of Bass and Rahman votes and Pratt votes on some media websites. Officials and others who have reviewed the data say that is not any proof of fraud. There was no fraud. Again, yeah, right. We need a federal audit into California elections. Project Odin Martial Law on Telegram. Monday the 8th of June 2026, Voter Fraud, Massachusetts. Dr. Shiva exposes that up to 100,000 ballots were missing from the Massachusetts 2020 election, including the ballot images, with the Secretary of State's office caught on tape saying that they didn't have them, which eliminates any type of audit. Diebold software that is implemented in today's election software since 2001 has a weighted vote feature that secretly shifts votes from one candidate to another in real time with no obvious tampering required, which allows a vote to be worth more than one vote per one person, introducing decimals. New versions of election management systems were released around mid-2020, included options to disable or hide these manipulation tools, making audits nearly impossible. More votes than voters recorded in multiple instances during the MA 2020 primary election cycle, and this is why votes were found across the country with fractional vote tallies. Just another method of how our elections are stolen, especially in 2020. Gitmo TV on Telegram. Monday, the 8th of June, 2026, voter fraud, California. The DOJ has announced they are pursuing several election fraud investigations with the FBI in California. The longer they count, the less they count. How is that possible? The Democrats manufactured this by design. The election cheat machine in California is so wildly unconstitutional and fraudulent it's not even funny. Nobody believes that Steve Hilton isn't in the lead for governor. Nobody believes Nithya Raman is more popular than Spencer Pratt. People registered to vote at your local park or porta potty are real voters. Nobody believes it should take months for votes to be counted. Require ID to vote. Count on election night? That's not controversial. Every serious democracy on earth manages to do it. California should too. Steve Bannon on Telegram.
Restored Republic via GCR. Judy note, do we have a problem with our legal system protecting children? In 1960s-1970s congressional hearings that in their MKUltra mind control program that was grounded in satanic child sacrifice rites. The evidence was destroyed and MKUltra was said to be shut down, but wasn't. No one was ever further investigated, nor prosecuted. Since 2015 the McDonald's restaurant franchise chain in Japan. On Wednesday, June 18, 2026, discrete public phases launch with free Jazar access for hardest-hit communities. Sabotage attempts fail against Starlink protections. Transformed patriots ignite hope across awakening networks. On Saturday, June 21, 2026, solstice healing waves hit critical mass. Miraculous restorations pour in worldwide. Tesla tech mends bodies while igniting pineal activations and unity consciousness elites feared. EBS, blackout, martial law, lockdowns, Monday, June 8, 2026. What you will see first. Trump class revelation on Telegram. 1. Local power flickers followed by identical maintenance notices across unrelated providers. 2. News channels looping the same frame. No live panels. No call INS. 3. Payment apps timing out at login, then reopening with a new terms screen. 4. Airport boards that show on time while terminals are held at the gate. 5. A short tone on radio and TV, then a quiet screen. Do not panic. That is the bridge. What IT means, the blackout is the curtain so the crew can change the set. Martial law is the lock so no one runs the old tricks. The arrests are the receipts that everything you suspected was not only real, it was systemic. The currency reset is the power cord finally plugged into the right outlet. Debt freedom is the first breath after years underwater. E-Global Currency Reset, Monday, June 8, 2026, U.S. debt clock shocker. Blockchain wins as we the people and asset-backed currency vision spark national debate. On Sunday 7th of June an emergency broadcast system, EBS, activation was said to be locked in at 72 hours or less, to Tuesday, 9th of June. EBS window for lockdown between Wednesday 10th of June and Saturday 20th of June. Mass arrests and prosecution, Monday, June 8, 2026. For decades, victims of mass atrocities, political persecution, torture, forced disappearances, and systematic abuse have waited for justice. Today, international legal organizations are intensifying efforts to expose those responsible and bring them before the law. JFK Secrets on Telegram. At the center of that fight stands Trial International, an organization dedicated to investigating and prosecuting some of the most serious crimes recognized under international law. Crimes against humanity are among the gravest offenses a person can commit. Unlike ordinary crimes, they are carried out as part of widespread or systematic attacks directed against civilian populations. These crimes transcend borders, governments, and political systems because they strike at the very foundations of human dignity. What makes crimes against humanity unique is that they do not require a state of war. They can be committed during peacetime and are not limited to attacks against a specific race, religion, nationality, or ethnic group. Their defining characteristic is the large-scale targeting of civilians. The modern legal framework for prosecuting these crimes was born from the ashes of World War II. The concept first appeared in the 1945 Nuremberg Charter, which established the foundation for holding individuals personally accountable for atrocities committed under the authority of governments or powerful organizations. Since then, international law has evolved through major tribunals and treaties, including the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, and the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. One principle remains central: individuals can be held personally responsible for crimes against humanity, regardless of rank, position, or political influence. Trial International works to ensure that accountability is more than a promise. The organization provides legal support to victims seeking justice through domestic courts, international tribunals, the United Nations human rights mechanisms, and regional human rights courts. Its mission is twofold: helping victims have their voices heard and pursuing legal action against perpetrators who believe they would never face consequences. Using international legal mechanisms and the principle of universal jurisdiction, Trial International supports investigations, files criminal complaints, and pushes judicial systems to prosecute those responsible for mass atrocities. For countless victims around the world, justice has been delayed for years, sometimes decades. Yet the pursuit continues. The message behind international human rights law is clear: no government, military leader, organization, or individual is above accountability when crimes against humanity are committed. History has shown that truth can be buried, evidence can be hidden, and victims can be silenced, but justice remains a force that continues to pursue those responsible, no matter how much time has passed. Guru Information and Intel, Monday, June 8, 2026. They removed the copper. And we know why. 107 on Telegram. In the past, swimming pools, bathtubs, and water pipes were made of copper. Why? Because copper is extremely antibacterial. It naturally purified the water without needing chlorine. When water flowed through copper pipes, it became electrically charged. People absorbed those copper ions while swimming or bathing, and their bodies benefited directly from it. Old farmers even put copper in their livestock's drinking troughs to keep the water pure and healthy. Today, everything has been replaced with plastic and chlorine. Monday, June 8, 2026. Britney Spears reveals child trafficker Oprah Winfrey pimped her to hundreds of elite pedos. Britney Spears has gone nuclear on Instagram, and her handlers are desperately trying to cover this up. In her most explosive revelation yet, Britney points the finger directly at Oprah Winfrey, accusing her of operating an international trafficking network that funnels young stars to the global elite for millions. White hats on Telegram. What we think we know. This of twos. June 9, 2026, Monday, June 8, 2026. Breaking alert: Bill O'Reilly demands criminal prosecution of E. Jean Carroll after $7 million funding bombshell. Monday, June 8, 2026. Boom. SCOTUS showdown: Supreme Court poised to end late mail ballot counting as America fights to restore Election Day integrity. Monday, June 8, 2026. Bombshell alert: Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent orders massive bank audits by IRS in $18 billion Minnesota welfare laundering scandal. Monday, June 8, 2026. Energy Mafia exposed: Attorney General Ken Paxton detonates the global energy cartel, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street accused of illegal market sabotage. Monday, June 8, 2026. RFK Jr. exposes the Ozempic conspiracy: how Congress, Big Pharma, and foreign profiteers engineered a $3 trillion scam against the American people. Monday, June 8, 2026. Global bombshell: top secret files leaked. The untouchable Trump dynasty, 130 years of ruthless power plays that hijacked global money flows and forged an $8 billion empire no enemy could kill. Monday, June 8, 2026. Special report: 20 red pill conspiracy theories they don't want you talking about. Monday, June 8, 2026. January 6 was a DNC planned event to overthrow the U.S. government. Newly hidden FBI documents released by FBI Director Cash confirm. Not only did the FBI stage January 6 5 months before it happened while the DNC planned to overthrow the United States government if Trump won, provoke a breakdown on January 6 to disrupt the proceedings and prevent the vote from going through. But Christopher Wray also had 274 federal agents embedded at the official proceedings of January 6 and had federal agents infiltrating chat rooms months before January 6 orchestrating for the overthrow of the U.S. government. United States Representative Clay Higgins, vindicated Rep. Clay Higgins, Christopher Wray was not only involved in the actions on J6 from within, he had over 200 agents embedded, dressed as Trump supporters, before the doors were even opened. A district judge dismissed the case in Jan. 2026 with the DOJ appealing it to the Ninth Circuit with arguments heard in May. No rulings have been made at this time. What is CA hiding? Fraud, Pastor Bob Joyce on Telegram. Monday, June 8, 2026 Voter fraud California, how are Democrats cheating in LA? Let me show you, there are 26 registered voters at this toilet in Los Angeles. I'm not kidding. I have the voter records. See for yourself. The only thing here is a stinky porta-john inside an empty parking lot. No homes. No mailboxes. No businesses. Yet 26 people are casting ballots here. Straight up voter fraud out in the open. This just a glimpse of what's happening under Gavin Newsom. This is why California desperately needs voter ID, and we must pass the SAVE Act now. Shadow of Ezra on Telegram. Monday, June 8, 2026 Voter fraud California. American Mvit Sumatsu says his dad was mailed a mail-in ballot by California and Georgia. My dad, who hasn't lived in California for 16 years, received a ballot sent to his Georgia address. Not forwarded, but sent to his Georgia address. A new lawsuit by Judicial Watch explains why. They are suing the state of California for having 873,000 ghost voters in California. That's hundreds of thousands of people, inactive voters, on California's voter rolls. Remember, my dad is not the only one that has experienced this. So many other people, in my comments section, on other social media platforms. So many people have gotten either multiple ballots, they've gotten ballots for themselves differentiating between their maiden name and their married name. People have gotten ballots for their children when they've never even registered to vote in the state itself. Democrats use these to ballot harvest, I guarantee it. Democrats are rigging our elections with mail-in ballots, ban them. JD Vance on Telegram. Monday, June 8, 2026 Voter fraud California, here we go. The Los Angeles Times is admitting that yes, tens of thousands of mail-in ballots did get processed for only Mayor Karen Bass and Nitya Raman, but it was a glitch. They say the system just glitched for a minute and didn't process any ballots for Spencer Pratt, but really there were ballots for Spencer, they just didn't get processed during the glitch. No, we don't believe you. This is fraud and Democrats are cheating. It was the result of a lag in an automated collection of the data in which there was one data collection that captured votes in a single batch of votes for Bass and Raman, and then about 1 minute later, the collection of the rest of that same batch of votes. Folks I spoke to also said there is no fraud. But again, there was no batch of votes without any Pratt votes. There was sort of a 1 minute variation between the upload of Bass and Raman votes and Pratt votes on some media websites. Officials and others who have reviewed the data say that is not any proof of fraud. There was no fraud. Again, yeah right. We need a federal audit into California elections, Project Odin Martial Law on Telegram. Monday, June 8, 2026 Voter fraud Massachusetts, Dr. Shiva exposes that up to 100,000 ballots were missing from the Massachusetts 2020 election, including the ballot images, with the Secretary of State's office caught on tape saying that they didn't have them, which eliminates any type of audit. Diebold software, that is implemented in today's election software since 2001, has a weighted vote feature that secretly shifts votes from one candidate to another in real time with no obvious tampering required, which allows a vote to be worth more than one vote, per one person, introducing decimals. New versions of election management systems were released around mid-2020, included options to disable or hide these manipulation tools, making audits nearly impossible. More votes than voters recorded in multiple instances during the MA 2020 primary/election cycle, and this is why votes were found across the country with fractional vote tallies. Just another method of how our elections are stolen, especially in 2020, Gitmo TV on Telegram. Monday, June 8, 2026 Voter fraud California, the DOJ has announced they are pursuing several election fraud investigations with the FBI in California. The longer they count, the less they count. How is that possible? The Democrats manufactured this by design. The election cheat machine in California is so wildly unconstitutional and fraudulent it's not even funny. Nobody believes that Steve Hilton isn't in the lead for governor. Nobody believes Nitya Raman is more popular than Spencer Pratt. People registered to vote at your local park or porta potty are real voters. Nobody believes it should take months for votes to be counted. Require ID to vote. Count on election night. That's not controversial. Every serious democracy on earth manages to do it. California should too. Steve Bannon on Telegram. Monday, June 8, 2026. Boom. The biggest drug traffickers in the world were the royal family and the Vatican. Great awakening now on Telegram. In a realm shrouded in mystery and power plays, some tales remain best-kept secrets hidden from public scrutiny by the elite. Yet whispers pull back the curtain on a chilling tale connecting the British royal family, the Vatican, and the global drug trade. Patriots brace for revelations that expose these forbidden connections. In politics, nothing happens by accident. If it happens, it was planned that way. A complex web links royal halls, Vatican chambers, and Asian opium dens in a conspiracy dance with shadows. The Opium Wars were no simple economic battle but an elite strategy for control. 2025 revelations indicate the British royals had active interest in opium as a tool to subdue nations. Royalty allegedly profited from this dark trade, with shadows persisting today. The Vatican's role shocks further. The Holy See allegedly engaged in drug trade to finance secret missions. Testimonies point to unholy interests beneath spiritual facades tied to the Golden Triangle. Myanmar's Golden Triangle serves as an illicit trade hub. True control may lie with royal and Vatican puppeteers using secret envoys and operations. Daring claims link the Vatican mafia with the British royal family and opium and heroin networks. The CIA joins this intrigue, routing drugs through the Golden Crescent and Golden Triangle. Poppy fields in Afghanistan, Pakistan fuel worldwide addiction. These stories blend drama and secrets, questioning real power holders. Discernment is vital, separating fact from fiction as Trump supporters fight the deep state. The Vatican and royals' alleged drug trade involvement creates a narrative of alliances and control. Caution and evidence guide the quest for truth amid elite manipulation whispers. Patriots must stay vigilant against these hidden forces as the Great Awakening advances transparency over cabal control.
Let freedom ring worldwide. Rolling blackouts in progress across the globe. Martial law to protect citizens during mass arrests of Satan-worshipping global elites. Global currency reset equals freedom from cabal debt. Be prepared with food, cash, and medicine. The emergency broadcast system was soon to deliver unfiltered truth directly to the people during a worldwide 10-day communication blackout period, where the internet and phone service would be down. Banks closed, ATMs, credit and debit cards won't work. Judy note: the Illuminati, Chinese Communist Party, CIA, Obama, and the Clintons and Zionist Israel have been working together to implement AI control of the world's population for their New World agenda. It all began after World War II, when the CIA was believed created not to protect American citizens but to further the cabal's New World agenda through a mind control program funded through U.S. taxpayer dollars run through the CIA. The center of CIA activity used to blackmail Congress to do their bidding by funding their covert programs, including mind control programming. Today it was believed this mind control was said to be manifested across the globe to control peoples of the world through the newly created AI data centers being built across the country and world. The CIA mind control program, brought out of Nazi Germany after World War II, eventually became known as MKUltra. It consists of 149 sub-projects, plus another 33 closely related programs. And there were 80 participating U.S. and Canadian institutions, including 44 colleges and universities. All were, and it is suspected still were presently, being funded by U.S. taxpayers through a CIA black budget. The purpose of the CIA mind control programming was to secure lifelong power over an individual in order to create super spies, terrorists, assassins, and or have long control over a victim. September 11, 2001, the Bush dynasty continued with George W. Bush. In September 11, 2001, which was a massive deep state cover operation to destroy evidence of Pentagon financial fraud. The day before 9/11, Rumsfeld announced that $2.3 trillion was missing from the Pentagon. The exact offices destroyed in the Pentagon attack were the offices investigating the missing money. Then a deep state groomed Obama, who was funded and installed, not elected, U.S. president. The Obama administration operated their crimes in open daylight. 14th of December 2010, fast and furious gun running with Mexican cartels comes to light under Obama. The Fast and Furious program was started under the Bush administration. Federal agents allowed guns to be sold and brought into Mexico, so they could supposedly trace the weapons. But the U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, ATF, ended up losing track of the guns. 2 were found at the crime scene where U.S. Border Patrol agent Brian Terry was killed on December 14, 2010. Obama continued the deep state agenda with Uranium One, selling American uranium to foreign adversaries. The Iran deal, billions in cash were delivered in darkness to Iran, and eventually to ISIS. Surveillance of journalists, political opponents in the Trump presidency from the White House and the Crossfire Hurricane coup, where Brennan, Clapper, Comey, Rice, and Jarrett ran the most sophisticated domestic intelligence operation ever deployed against a sitting president-elect in American history. By Sunday, April 25th, the collapse of America and the world became apparent when a CIA Obama, Biden, Clinton, Pelosi White House pedophile ring was revealed by Julian Assange in a Fox News Hannity bombshell report. We have hard proof that President Obama ran a pedophile ring out of the White House. More recently, teen star Justin Bieber claimed that Obama raped him, while another child star, Britney Spears, claimed that, like Bieber, Oprah pimped her out as a child and teen. The influence of the CIA in the takedown of America was shown in August 2023. Cabal do attacks on Hawaii. Deep state real estate agents, FEMA, Maui police, and National Guard infiltrated with CIA agents were part of the problem. On Sunday, March 24th, 2024, CNN, Obama and Clinton's corrupt system working in connection with the CIA was revealed when Trump said to the crowd, "ISIS is honoring President Obama. Obama's the founder of ISIS." These same treasonous leaders were said to use the CIA to join the Satan-worshipping pedophile Rothschilds to create Zionist Israel to be their one-world government headquarters as a safe haven for pedophiles, human traffickers, war criminals, and tyrants. The CIA mind control continued big time during the so-called Biden administration. Tulsi Gabbard recently dropped a bombshell. Joe Biden was not calling the shots during his presidency, and neither was Kamala Harris in charge. Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Antony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, and the deep state used the autopen to run the Joe Biden presidency. But here's what they didn't count on. The White House and Trump's global military alliance already had control of the system. Through the new Starlink satellite system and NSA, they had everything, every wire, comm, transaction, every order, all ready for arrests and military tribunals of over a million traitors who were part of the deep state. Now Trump and his global military alliance was ready for the greatest sting operation ever. Military units worldwide have mobilized for a coordination strike to destroy the globalist power structure. Be prepared for a global blackout and EBS activation, where internet will be down, banks will close, ATMs, credit and debit cards won't work, and normal communication will cease for 10 days during the worldwide mass arrests. SGAnon on Telegram. Sunday, June 7th, they deleted 5,000 years of human history, replaced it with a lie. The timeline you were taught in school is a fabrication. It was constructed in the 16th and 17th centuries by a small group of Jesuit scholars who rewrote the historical record to serve the interests of the Vatican and the emerging European empires. Entire civilizations were erased. Technologies that existed thousands of years ago were attributed to primitive cultures who supposedly could not read or write. Advanced cities were reclassified as mythological. Maps showing accurate coastlines of Antarctica, drawn 300 years before it was officially discovered, were dismissed as errors. SGAnon on Telegram. Possible timing, EBS blackout, martial law lockdowns. Saturday, June 6, 2026, military intel drop. Final phase of the Great Awakening has begun. EBS high alert. Emergency broadcast system, Nasara Jasara QFS Medbed on Telegram. A global financial collapse is here, with bank runs not only possible but inevitable. An emergency broadcast system, EBS activation, is locked in at 72 hours or less to Tuesday, June 9th. EBS window for lockdown between Wednesday, June 10th and Saturday, June 20th. The EBS will transmit 7 loud emergency alerts directly to mobile phones worldwide. A worldwide blackout is essential for the global financial system to transfer from fiat currency to gold-backed. During the worldwide blackout, there will be no internet, no cell service. Because of no internet, ATMs, credit, and debit card systems will not work. Fake news satellites are now offline, with Starlink satellites fully secured. Only White Hat broadcasts will flow. As of Saturday, June 6th, Quantum Financial System live in test mode. Gold-backed accounts sinking right now. As of Saturday evening, June 6th, deep state assets rounded up in covert raids across D.C., New York City, London, and the Vatican. Special forces, National Guard, as they neutralize cartel militias, child trafficking networks. CIA cartel units attempt suicide raids on Texas, Arizona, California border tunnels collapsed. Commanders eliminated. DHS, ATF, FBI purged. The 10 days of communication darkness window is opening to protect citizens during mass arrests. Round 3. Expect power fluctuations, internet blackouts in select zones. Sunday, June 7th at 11:11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the grid locked into unity frequency. All systems went green. Tier 4B ISO 20022 on Telegram. The QFS mainframe confirmed global balance stability. The world is now operating on truth code. No corruption can enter. No compromise will be tolerated. High-risk accounts were flagged and frozen. Names known only to military intelligence are now public in sealed drop files. Gitmo is full. New locations have been activated offshore for tribunal overflow. Justice is no longer a future promise. It's happening right now. Meanwhile, new school programs are rolling out under consciousness directives. No more indoctrination. No more lies. Children will be taught who they truly are, not who they were told to be. Prepare for the next phase. When the power resets and comes back on, nothing will be the same. New screens, new maps, new mission. You are part of the greatest transfer of power in human history. Act accordingly. Stand tall. The world is watching. What we think we know as of Monday, June 8th. Saturday, June 6th, Argentina President Javier Milei, a Trump ally, confirms he lifted 10 million plus out of poverty by returning $100 billion to the people. Having pushed the filthy parasite of the state out of the way, we've returned 15 points of GDP to good Argentines. We lowered the tax burden by 2.7 points of GDP. Tier 4B ISO 20022 on Telegram. Saturday, June 6, Fox News. Kathy Hochul's New York has been subpoenaed by the Trump administration after they tried to block an investigation into the non-English-speaking CDL bus driver who crashed into Virginia traffic, killing 5. Sunday, June 7th, the U.S. Patent Office granted a patent for manipulating your nervous system through your TV. U.S. patent 6,506,148. B2 issued January 14, 2003. This official patent describes how to generate pulsed electromagnetic fields from a television or computer screen to manipulate the human nervous system, even if you're not consciously watching the screen. The document explains how to induce sensory resonance in the brain at very low frequencies, 0.5 hertz to 0.4 hertz in similar ranges, by pulsing the images subliminally It's written in black and white in an American patent. This is not a theory. It is an official document from the United States Patent and Trademark Office. Project Odin Martial Law on Telegram. And just a side note, I know that's true because one time I was recording something on the TV, and when I went to go play it back, and I slowed it down, it was flashing. It was pulsating. And I'd never seen that before. Sunday, June 7th. Boom, the Obama files are worse than we thought. Explosive viral claims spark demands for answers on Tehran, Benghazi, Epstein, Hezbollah, and Shadow Government Network. Sunday, June 7th, welcome to Guantanamo. Which presidents are going? Deep state treason, military tribunals, official documents, and the full list of indictments.
Good morning, everybody. It's a Monday. It's the 8th of June, 2026. My first story is quite a sad one, really. There's been a huge earthquake in the Philippines, and for those people who know me, I've known about the Philippines for many, many years. We've got a team of people out there who work for us in South Mindanao. And South Mindanao has been hit by an extraordinarily large earthquake this morning. In that part of the world, when you get an earthquake that hits just a small earthquake, it does a lot of damage. This one was over 8 on the scale. So our thoughts and our prayers go out to the people of the Philippines this morning, and none more so than our own team. We have a significant team there. So our thoughts and prayers are with you today. It's not going to be easy. And we pray that the majority of you stay safe. It's not nice. Our hearts are with you, and so will my audience's hearts be with you. But moving forward on to what else is happening, it's very interesting what's happening in California with the election there. There's a lot of people screaming blue murder. We know that the elections are rigged. For those people who are awakened, we know that. But for those people who are not, they're still denying that these elections are rigged. Now, it's blatantly obvious to the world that what happened there was Spencer Pratt leading comfortably. And then suddenly a Democrat comes from nowhere, Raman, suddenly comes from nowhere, completely out of the blue. And then when they asked Gavin Newsom, he said it out loud. When people asked him why the election wasn't counted yet, why was it the counting not finished? His answer was simple, and it was in your face. How can we count the votes until we know how many we need? Are you that stupid you can't see it yet? They put it in your face. It's there in black and white. That's for the dumb ones.
Good morning, Charlie. Good morning, everyone. Well, first of all, I'd like to say a massive happy birthday to you. And for years, you have brought people together from every corner of the world, creating community, building friendships, giving faith, hope and freedom for everybody to ask questions. You've made us laugh, you've made us think, and most importantly, you've helped build a family that stretches across the globe. So, before we go into today's headline,
just be careful. These people are hidden. These people are evil. And it's thanks to the light that is exposing the darkness that we can see who they are. Drew.
Next up, President Trump has sparked major debate online after reportedly posting the world's most powerful reset. The message has triggered huge speculation about what exactly is being resetted. Well, we know.
Yeah, we do. And for those people who are skeptical, dubious, those doubters, everything was laid out by Q. Most people thought it was a conspiracy theory. I did at the start, and then I started doing some research. When I realized it was a military operation, and Derek Johnson helped me understand that, then you look at Q completely different, because all of this has been predicted and shown to the world, but through Q, through the Q drops. So that those people who wanted to know what was going on could see what was going on. So when Trump dropped something like that, it's massively important, because we all knew that we were heading for a global financial reset. I told you that 7 years ago. Now we can see it in plain sight. And even Donald Trump is telling you to your face. You'll probably still deny it. You'll probably turn over and go back to sleep again. Good luck.
Saturday, June 6th, Secretary Rubio reveals USA not only helped NGOs commit fraud, but purposefully undermined and contradicted U.S. State Department directives and interests in foreign nations. QAnon evidence on Telegram. That is de facto treason. It operated almost as an independent State Department, and oftentimes USAID was operating in contravention and contradiction of what the embassy was trying to accomplish in the host country. One of the complaints you would get from many developing countries is that they would get flooded with NGOs that were picked for them. These NGOs would then operate in the country without even coordinating with the government, doing whatever they wanted, pursuing what they wanted. In some cases, it extended well beyond food and medicine. It extended to political interference and all sorts of other activities in these countries that were undermining the national interest and the credibility of the United States. Saturday, June 6th, Minnesota has been taken over by Muslims. The invasion of illegals. Ezra A. Cohen on Telegram. Nearly half of all immigrants in the Minneapolis-St. Paul Twin Cities were found to have committed some form of immigration fraud. Over the course of the operation, our officers found indication of fraud, non-compliance, or public safety and national security concerns in nearly a little less than 50% of the cases interviewed. Focusing on a list of over 1,000 target cases involving more than 900 individuals, our officers encountered blatant marriage fraud, visa overstays, people claiming to work at businesses that can't be found, forged documents, abuse of the H-1B visa system, abuse of the F-1 visas, and many other discrepancies. The Twin Cities have one of the largest Somali populations in the U.S., concentrated in Minneapolis. Somalis are predominantly Muslim. These are the most common violations found: blatant marriage fraud, visa overstays, forged documents claiming employment at non-existent businesses, H-1B abuse of F-1 visas, fake death certificates. These immigrants aren't here to assimilate. They're here to scam us for everything we have and then take over our country. Saturday, June 6th, the Obama files are worse than we thought. The storm is here on Telegram. His lawyers did not show up to negotiate. They showed up to beg. Here's what Bondi's team found inside the Tehran servers under Obama's codename Renegade. 14 wire transfers to a Swiss account linked to Hezbollah between 2014 and 2016. Total, $1.7 billion. The same $1.7 billion he told Congress was frozen Iranian assets. He signed directive authorizing the CIA to stand down during the Benghazi attack. Not typed, handwritten. Communications with Epstein's handlers, dated March 2015, discussing the island arrangement and the Chicago package. A back channel to Tehran through Valerie Jarrett, active from 2012 to 2024. Yes, 2024, 2 years after he left office. He didn't just betray America. He was running a shadow government from his basement in D.C. while pretending to be retired. His lawyers are now offering full cooperation in exchange for immunity. Trump said no. No deals, no mercy, no escape. The man who divided America for 8 years is about to face the America he tried to destroy. And she's awake. Obama is now at Gitmo singing his heart out. Sunday, June 7th. The list has been unsealed. Martial law and telegram. For years, they operated in shadows, believing themselves untouchable. But the quantum grid never forgets. Every transaction, every order, every secret transmission has been recorded, and now the files have been opened. These are the names confirmed under military tribunal authority. Hillary and Bill Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, John Podesta, John Brennan, James Comey, Maxine Waters, Adam Schiff, Hunter Biden, George W. Bush, Anthony Fauci, Huma Abedin, Bill Gates, Anthony Weiner, George and Alexander Soros, Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell, Kevin McCarthy, Chuck Schumer, Kamala Harris, Robert Mueller, Mike Pence, Joe Biden, James Clapper, Dick Cheney, John Kerry, Loretta Lynch, Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, James Baker, Eric Holder, Tony Podesta, Susan Rice, Harry Reid, Paul Ryan, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Sally Yates, Mitt Romney, Jerry Nadler, Klaus Schwab, Michael Obama, Andrew Cuomo, H.R. McMaster, Deborah Birx, Mark Zuckerberg, Nikki Haley, Brian Kemp, and Lloyd Austin. These are not politicians anymore, they are defendants. Their bank accounts are frozen, their communication lines seized, their movements tracked under global military enforcement. Gitmo cells have been reopened and expanded. New tribunal courts operate in total secrecy while the world looks away. Documents marked Omega have been filed. Every name is cross-referenced with financial crimes, human trafficking networks, and espionage charges. They thought they could hide. Behind foundations, banks, and charities, the quantum system has turned their own data into evidence. The world will know their faces. The world will hear their voices. The tribunals are not coming, they're underway. Nothing can stop what is already in motion.
I've been trying to get in a podcast with you for a while now, Peter. I know you kind of went radio silent for a while. I've been eager to hear your side of things from your vantage point on the battlefield. And I mean, everything we're seeing right now is it's just insane. I mean, I don't even know what's real anymore, what's real, what's fake with all the AI crap on social media. But I know you're good at deciphering things, and it's an honor to have you on, man. Thank you.
Oh, it's great to have you. You know, I'm going to come right out of the gates and say that the stuff we're going to cover, I would say for the better part, well, shoot, it started back when I was involved with the Bundy Ranch protests, and I got indicted falsely. I mean, all the stuff you hear about the SPLC, the weaponization of government, that happened to me. They experimented with a smaller group, with the Bundy people, and then they practiced, and then, of course, took it to January 6th. So that's when my exposure to all the stuff we're going to talk about happened, because we decided we were going to go to trial, and we dug into all the paperwork, all the discovery. Okay. And what I'm about to share with you leads to the following. Thank God, first of all, thank God President Trump came back in office.
Absolutely.
If that didn't happen, oh my goodness, we were done. We were done. But because he came into office, we voted him in. I've got some conspiracy theories about how that happened, because I do believe the military was involved partly with some of that. I do. Because they had been investigating. Here, I'm going to hold this up right here. See this?
Yep.
Stolen elections. And if you don't know, Ralph Pizzullo and the investigation that was going on for years, that the Venezuelans and the Serbians were hijacking elections over the past 20 years, and they overthrew 72 countries. Did you know about that, Nino?
Yeah. I've had Wano Saban has talked about that multiple times on the show, talking about 71 countries is the number I heard.
71, yeah. Well, 72 us, right?
Right.
I would have to say that because of the magnitude of where we're at, that the military had to say, oh, holy cow. When Biden was in office, I heard that they did not turn the nuclear codes over to him because they found, and a report was delivered by Radcliffe, I don't know if you know about that, on January 7th, that they found, and it was a big dispute. January 7th, Radcliffe delivered to Congress a report that showed that there was Chinese intervention in the 2020 election.
Yes.
So
I'm getting the same intel you are.
Yeah, and that is a fact. I saw the document. I know about his delivery. That's not a conspiracy theory. So the intelligence services and the military knew that there was foreign intervention in the election, but they don't get involved in our elections and, say, oh, the military is going to be in charge because we found this report. No, they have to take care of our nuclear arsenal. Now, I was in the military. I know about continuity of government because I was in aviation ordnance. I had a top secret security clearance. And I know that there's a procedure, literally. Back in the day, we used to call it 3-ring binders. What happens when XYZ happens? They have a mandate to protect us constitutionally. All right. They pull a 3-ring binder off the shelf. They open it up and they say, this is what happens. The Department of Energy has the highest levels of our military that are in charge of protecting our nuclear arsenal. They're not going to hand the football over to somebody that they know was installed by the Chinese or any outside foreign influence. So these are facts. And that was January 7th that set that in motion. Now, then, of course, all the auto pen, all that stuff, everything we've been suffering through, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you right now that what is about to happen, and I think it's remarkable, we're going to be getting together on the 15th, 16th, and 17th, because I think that President Trump is going to be getting the biggest birthday present he's ever gotten in his entire life. And that is going to be the release of the ODNI report by Tulsi Gabbard about this right here, the stolen election. She has not only all of the data, but they proved up, okay? Meaning that they sat down and whether you like General Flynn or you dislike General, there's a lot of people out there on the internet. There's split like MAGA versus non-MAGA. General Flynn, Patrick Byrne, and a bunch of people sat down with these whistleblowers offshore, and they paid to have them show how they hacked the elections. Then they had to go through a vetting process. Then they had to get the DOJ involved. And the DOJ says, yeah, okay, you guys are trying to save yourselves. Show us that you know how to hack elections. So there's a long process where they had to show them exactly how the elections were hacked. I would say that they're even doing it in this latest California election, that they're still showing and providing final evidence as to how they're hacking elections, because it's so obvious right now. Now, it's taken a long time for this stuff to come out. Everybody knows elections are being hacked. We're watching it happen in California right now, live, real time. So when she releases that bombshell report, I know somebody that has read the report.
Wow. Okay.
In DC, I actually spoke to the person that read the report, and it is solid.
So how does this get out there? I mean, let's say is there going to be a proper press conference? She comes out and says, look, here it is. We have all the information. It was stolen. This is the way it's going to go down. I mean, is it going to be on the mainstream news? Is it just going to hit certain podcasts?
It's going to be the biggest thing that's ever happened in our life.
In June.
I'm gonna say, I don't know. I mean, all signs point towards it. And let me tell you how I know that all signs are pointing towards it is because of the two federal grand juries for you heard of the Grand Conspiracy?
Yes.
Back in October of last year, I had been accused of being an FBI informant. I never spoke to the FBI ever. They used that as COINTELPRO against me to get the Patriots away from me. I had never been an FBI informant until October of 2025. And that's when I gave them all of the evidence that we're going to talk about in this. It's a brief segment. It's going to take a long time to unpack this, months to unpack all of it when the indictments come out. But I provided evidence back in October when James Comey was originally indicted. You remember that?
Yep.
It was through Lindsay Halligan's office. Lindsay Halligan set that up. I provided her with my evidence. I mean, I have receipts like you wouldn't believe. And I'll give you a couple of examples of what I discovered through my cases. All of these black operatives. This is probably the first, even on my show, I hint towards it, okay? My show's smaller, right? They suppressed me. They disconnected me from millions. But what I discovered was that the FBI had 23 child porn servers housed in Fort Washington, Maryland. And the reason for that was not, they became the largest distributor of child porn. but all the black operatives communicated in the chat rooms. That's how these guys all operate.
No way.
Oh, yeah. We got hard drives with all the chat logs submitted to the government. Biden administration covered it up. I provided the FBI the receipts, the locations. Remember the burn bags?
Yeah.
The burn bags, the locations. It was at the CIA's OIG. Had the serial numbers of the discs. All of that stuff. This is in October of last year. Then Comey, guess what happened within a week after that? Comey's indictment got dismissed.
Right.
Of course, because they would never want this stuff to come out and have him get a superseding indictment because he was behind this. He was running Fort Washington, Maryland is where these computer servers were. Fort Washington, Maryland is basically an exact replica copy of everything the NSA has. And by the way, if I get too technical, slow me down, right?
No, I mean, you have the floor, man. This is interesting.
Right.
Everything you're saying right now to me is adding up. I mean, that's why Trump pulled the generals, some of the generals and said I was 45, 46, and 47. And to me, that means nuclear and beyond. That is why Biden didn't get the nuclear codes. Everything you're saying adds up.
Actually, if the Department of Energy handed Biden the nuclear codes, then they were overthrown. They cannot turn over the nuclear codes to a civilian authority that was installed by a foreign entity. They had evidence of that. That was provided on January 7th. So they would be negligent in their duties. So we're going to have to say there's no way they turned over those nuclear codes to Joe Biden, knowing what they knew. All right. So here we are. We got evidence of how they communicate. I provided it personally provided it to the FBI. A week later, Lindsey Halligan gets fired. Comey's not on a superseding indictment. I'm like, oh, damn. Well, guess what I was told? That the evidence got packaged up and sent down to Florida for the grand conspiracy cases that involved John Brennan, James Comey, Hillary Clinton. I mean, all of them. Dude, I would not be surprised. Nobody has come right out and told me that they're going to bring these indictments. But I was told that this thing is so huge, we're talking thousands.
Okay, so
thousands of perp walks.
Like Trump cleaning up the memorial pool. It's now the reflection. Dude, that's totally signs or signifies draining the swamp or cleaning the swamp. Now it's a reflection pool. Everything he's doing is signaling towards these mass arrests. And a lot of people, when is it going to happen? Never going to happen. I think we're just around the corner, especially with the bombs that Tulsi Gabbard is about to drop. Then I'm hearing, and I don't know if you heard this, that he's going to leave up the UFC Claw Arena. I don't know if that's true or not, but that would make sense if you're going to perp walk people or put them on public display, right? I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Is that true? I don't know. I can't validate that one. I've heard.
I don't know. And what I do, I'm a dot connector. But the stuff, when I say that I have personal firsthand knowledge, like what I just described to you, I literally have firsthand knowledge. I spoke to the FBI. You can't lie to them about stuff, right? So I'm locked in with them. But I connect dots with some of the stuff that's happening. There's no way President Trump, with the confidence that he has, and I need to make sure, remind me, I have to talk about how he's setting our economy, because all this money laundering through USAID, I mean, they hijacked our entire financial system, all the fraud. You see all the fraud investigations going on. You've never seen anything like this. So they got to cut off their money flow. And then we have to kind of reestablish a new economic system. And I have had firsthand knowledge as to how that's being put in place. Working with Trump, and guess how long it's been in effect? The whole time he was out of office, he's been setting up what's happening right now. The entire time. I have personal firsthand knowledge of that. That they were, they said, oh, he's got to get in, otherwise this stuff falls apart. But President Trump was working the entire time to set up a brand new economic system that is going to blow away any, economic setbacks that we have from this big perp walk. Okay. Notice how the DNC, just a quick note here, and I'll throw back to you. Notice how the DNC is like $13 million in debt.
Yeah.
And the RNC has like 150. Where'd all the money go? We cut off USAID. Now they have no more money. What happened?
So how do you expect this? How do you see this happening? DNI Tulsi comes out,
Yes.
drops bombs, and then arrests start happening after midterms, around midterms. How do you see this playing out, Pete?
Okay. Now, now the drops are going to come, and these are facts. And correct me if I'm wrong. Tulsi Gabbard says she's going to be releasing reports. She's going to be here until June 30th. Correct?
Correct.
She was involved with the investigation in Georgia, Fulton County, Georgia, right? She was standing there. Remember, she witnessed the seizing the ballots, all that stuff. She was part of that investigation right here, stolen election, right? I keep presenting this because this is forensic evidence in this book of the stolen election. And the DOJ has all their testimony. So they locked everything down, grabbed ballots. Tulsi was involved in that. She wrote the report that is going to blow out all of the elections. That's going to be one of the reports. And then the Russia collusion thing. I'm being told that before the end of her tenure, which is June 30th, she's going to be dropping these reports. Now, she's going to want to be, she's not going to do it on June 29th and then bail, right? She's probably going to want to do it mid-June, drop the bomb. Now, she's already done criminal referrals. You know that, right?
Right. I've heard.
Grand juries.
Golly, this is so what? My question is, what is there, if they're not being funded anymore, the Democrats or the deep state, what could be their next move? I mean, they're not going to just surrender and lay down. What's the next move here?
I would say, I'm telling everybody right now, I'm not blowing hopium. I hated it for so many years. We had so much hopium. There were going to be arrests, and there were a lot of people working, but we got infiltrated and subverted. There were legal cases. Rudy Giuliani's, many attorneys had their legal cases sabotaged internally. I don't know if you know that. So it just made us look really, really bad. I'm not blowing hopium. I will say this. The magnitude of this thing, I wouldn't be surprised if outside countries have been involved because 72 countries were overthrown. That this is a big international thing to investigate. It takes a lot of time because considering the magnitude of what I'm talking about to unpack that thing. I mean, shutting down USAID, that's an octopus, right? Because they set it up and Nancy Pelosi put it in the CARES Act that we got to help the rural communities and we got to give them twice the amount of money. So they double billed. They were doing fake billings.
Wow.
Hundreds of billions of dollars. This is what JD Vance is on right now. So here's no hopium. You ready?
I'm ready.
President Trump's got this. I sense this in his his confidence. He's trolling them all the time. The level of confidence because he knows the mandate's already been there. Listen, he's just the civilian authority, I believe, for what, and they have to be careful with this. They can't say, President Trump can't say, I was in charge of this and I'm arresting everybody. No, it can't be that way. It needs to be constitutionally, I'm the civilian authority, who's the executive, right, that runs the DOJ and the FBI. We cleaned house there. We also needed a civilian authority for a temporary restoration. And as the commander-in-chief, I've given the military the authority to help with the investigation, verify everything so that it's not, one man, one crazed man that's going to take over the country.
Right, because that's why the Democrats are playing him out like this. That's why they're giving him that reputation, that image. Oh, he's a Hitler. He's going to be a tyrannical dictator because they know what's coming.
Civil war would come. If Trump was the front face of this, we'd have a civil war. So the front face of this thing is going to be ODNI reports coming forward. Other people within the administrations, that's still the front face with Trump on it. But the military needs to come in at a certain point and say, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a long-term investigation. What we discovered was so outrageous. Let me turn to our international partners who've also been overthrown. And what?
When does it go military in your mind? When does this go? Okay,
I'd say this month.
This month.
This month. Yeah, this month. Yeah. Here's another thing that I'm working on, and this is what I know. It's called Project 6805. Did you know that all of the states, they snuck this into you know what the National Defense Authorization Act is?
National Defense, yeah, the NDAA.
NDAA, Yeah. In 2025, December 18th of 2025, they snuck in to the NDAA. You know how Trump sneaks stuff in there, right?
Right.
His executive orders and stuff. And then you read it and you're like, holy cow. December of 2025, December 18th, Section 6805 of the NDAA said that all states must perform a cybersecurity penetration test on their election systems. And they had 180 days to do that.
And they didn't.
Guess what? I know personally and firsthand that nobody has done it. And they delayed and delayed and delayed. Why? Because I've been involved with the technology company to lock down our election systems and also help with the administration with our critical minerals and rare earths and the exchanges that are going to help offset some of these economic losses. So
Wow.
none of the states, and guess when everything expires? 180 days from December of 2025 is end of June.
June?
Yeah.
Am I right?
Oh,
I don't know how good my math is.
It's June. It's 6 months, right?
Yeah, June, yeah.
The end of June, we cannot, I'm going to say this right now. We cannot have a midterm election with our current cybersecurity.
Wow.
We cannot.
So will that push Trump to sign a national security emergency and executive orders?
It's already in place.
Wow.
It's already in place. There's already an executive order. I don't know if you know, dating all the way back to 2018.
Foreign interference, right?
Foreign interference. It's already in place. There's other elements of that. I don't want to get too complex and bore everybody. Trump's got this. I mean, he is really, if you look at it, it's this. Although he's bombastic, he's out front, he trolls everybody, right?
I've done long diatribes concerning Israel, and I'll just try to, as briefly as possible, state it again for right now. The intent has been by this globalista crowd that they want to create a third world war based on a religious battle between the three Abrahamic religions. All three, the Muslim, the Jewish, and the Christian religions, which are considered the Abrahamic religions, who claim Abraham as their great ancestor, children of Abraham, to get these brothers fighting each other, okay, these half-brothers fighting each other. It's the devil's way. And we fight each other, take each other out, and then they step into the vacuum. So the intent has always been, and by the way, Albert Pike, who wrote what essentially amounts to the Bible for Masons, and remember, Washington, D.C., London, and many of the cities of the world are built around Masonic imagery, connections, secret handshake groups behind the scenes. Those groups are working together, not just the Masons, but a number of other, Club of Rome, World Economic Forum, the Davos crowd, on and on and on. A number of these groups all working together with the intent that they're going to build on the two First World Wars with a third where there's this fight, a religious battle, a religious fight. And in the aftermath of that, they declare a new world order, a singular entity ruling the world. And Albert Pike wrote about this in the mid-1800s in his book, Morals and Dogma. And he says right in the middle of the book that it would take 3 world wars to create a one world government.
Understood.
And so Albert Pike proposed in his book, Morals and Dogma, that there would be a one world government that would be the outgrowth of 3 world wars. So think about that. Somewhere behind the scenes, people were orchestrating governments around the world to work through World War I to bring it about, World War II to bring it about, and then they have a third world war in mind that they believe if they can pull it off, allows them to create a one world government. They step into the vacuum of destruction, out of chaos, order, and rule the world with their little secret handshake organization. And by the way, in the middle of the book, Morals and Dogma, first off, he dedicates the book to the entity, the spirit that gave him all the guidance in order to write down what he wrote down concerning how to bring about a one world government. He dedicates the book by writing it in green ink in honor of the entity that explained all these things to him, who was green. Their thing is, he says, let there be no misunderstanding. The God whom we serve is Lucifer. Okay, so Albert Pike says that Masons are serving Lucifer. And they have all their religious talk, all their, stuff out in plain sight. But the guy that wrote the book says that they serve Lucifer, the entity that beguiled Eve, for he hid amongst the green leaves of the garden. With that in mind, these people have moved into positions of authority all over the world. By the way, it's not just a Masonic theme, for example, in Washington, D.C. and other capitals around the world. In Baghdad, when you went into Baghdad, the whole city was built around Masonic themes and angles and imagery and everything else, just like Washington, D.C. Okay? Why? Because they're everywhere. With that in mind, the money crowd behind the scenes, when Israel was in the Palestinian district for England, it was a handshake agreement, the signing Balfour Declaration, 1917, between Lord Rothschild and Lord Balfour, that set aside that the Zionists, a Jewish group, money group, could buy land in the Palestine district with it in mind that when they reached a certain amount of land that was purchased and owned, that they could then declare a new nation of Israel for the Jews. And 30 years later, 1947, after World War II, they in fact did decide to declare themselves a nation. They were recognized in 48 by the UN, a Rockefeller operation. Remember, the Rockefeller brothers and their friends created the UN. That wasn't just altruistic business people and political people coming together. It was specifically orchestrated, built. The land was donated by Nelson Rockefeller, where the UN Center sits today. And they did these negotiations even during the war to create this entity to replace the League of Nations, which had been what they'd worked with coming into World War I and out of World War I, refining their ideas on the way to creating a new world order. Israel is a political creation of moneyed parties within a certain cabal, many of whom were Jewish, in order to create this stumbling block for the world. So the current modern day Israel has many Christians, many people of faith, by the way, many Muslims. I had a friend who was amongst the Jewish leadership that came into Jerusalem after the Six-Day War in 1967 and were greeted by Muslim leaders who then took them on the tour of Jerusalem of all the sites that they had preserved and did it as brothers, half-brothers, to show information they had about the history, about locations. And my Jewish friend that did that walk said this was not adversarial. This was done with an understanding that they saw the world differently in many ways, but they both claimed Abraham as their great ancestor father. And that's why even the negotiations for peace today are called the Abraham Accords, trying to come up with a way to work together. Now, with all that in mind, you look at Israel, this political creation out of the city of London, the banking, monetary stuff, and London proper, with the crown influence and the 13 royal families. Remember, it's not just the British royal family, there's 13 royal families that want to rule the world together in some type of a league. And so, with that in mind, Israel, as it sits there today, is somebody's creation, ultimately with the intent of using it as a piece, a pawn, a piece in the game, to create a world conflict, a stumbling block for the whole world that brings the whole world to a World War III around religious issues, of which then they can step into the aftermath out of chaos, order, and declare some kind of a peace for the world by neutralizing all three religions and taking control of religion, putting somebody on a throne to rule over all three religions from Jerusalem and to make it sort of an international city for their purposes. That's the plan. So you look at everything related to Israel within the light that is this God's creation, and he put Israel there, and this is the reconstituted Israel of the Bible. No, it's a political creation by people. Look, I can just tell you right now, the Rothschild family in total, the Rockefeller family, these are not people that have normal religious views or objectives within what they do. These are people that are, in fact, Luciferian, worship Lucifer literally. That's why, for example, at the UN, this creation of the Rockefellers, where did the money come from? Lucis Trust. Where, what was the, they had a little religious area for a chapel inside the UN. It was called the Lucis Chapel. Yeah, that's not Christ. That's not God in heaven. That's not even anything to do Muslim, Jew, any of that. That's this little secret society of Lucifer worshippers, the light bringer. The Green Man goes by 1,000 names of male and female presents. So Israel is what's going on right now is they're being used to create conflicts that will be useful in bringing the world to World War III if they succeed. And by the way, I'll just tell you, the only person that legally has the legal right to reign and rule over Jerusalem as a royal would be Prince William. And so there's I've had that discussion many, many times. I believe that this Commonwealth operation, biggest country on the planet, hidden in plain sight, that it is the intent of these globalista to move William into a position to sit on a throne in Jerusalem. And once you kind of see the rest of the cabal tactics, that's exactly where they're going. It's not just anybody. It is Prince William.
Thank you, Juan. What a distinction of the Israel of the Bible as opposed to today's political creation from London and others.
Will we stop World War III? Well, maybe we can't stop it, but we can delay it. We can get advantage. We can be in a better spot. Look, they have options too. One of the things that's going on right now, we're still fighting through some missing nukes that have been refreshed. That's this whole fight. Remember the whole thing looking for nukes with all the drones and people, I think it's aliens, I think it's China, etc. Trump himself said, no, they're looking for nuclear signatures. Come on, man. We're in a hell of a fight. And when I say it's a cat 2 now, you can live under the threat for the rest of your life, or you can bring it to a head once and done. Let's get it over with. And that's where we're at. We're going to fight this through. We're not going to live under these perpetual threats forever. Not going to be a Cold War forever. We're going to go in there. We're going to do the fight. by God's hand, we will win. But win or lose, it's going to be over with. We're not going to just let them continue to progress to control the world through fraudulent elections, through theft. All that's necessary for evil to survive and prosper is that good men do nothing. So we are now taking the action needed to save the world. And that's this moment we're in.
What do you see taking place in terms of justice and the process to get to justice between today and, let's say, the midterms as it relates to Russiagate? And can we expect anything else out of Tulsi Gabbard before she exits the stage?
Oh yeah, she's gonna release the mother lode over the next few weeks, and it'll take months and months and months to dissect everything that she releases. But she's going to get these things out in the open, and then we're going to have a public discussion before the whole world. Russiagate, the election frauds and theft. Remember, she was briefed, and all of the key staff within Homeland Security were briefed in small groups over many months by the people who are now testifying before federal grand juries on the global conspiracy. And she was briefed intricately. Her staff was briefed intricately, and they've been pulling out the documents, other testimony, etc. And the culmination of all that is what Tulsi's going to release before she leaves office. And there's a certain value genius to that, because she's essentially a lame duck now at this point in time. And she won't be going into other politics. She'll just be taking care of her husband. Well, so she can fire at will and walk away. Somebody else doesn't have to take the heat, although I just saw that President Trump this morning named the head of Fannie Mae Freddie Mac, which is huge, 10 trillion, the property loans and all that, that he's going to maintain his position there, but also be handling temporarily Director of National Intelligence position for Tulsi till President Trump names his new one. And by the way, President Trump hasn't named the replacement for Pam Bondi yet. Todd Blanche is running things over at Department of Justice. He is doing what Trump is asking him to do. And so a lot of people think he might stand a chance of getting to be the choice for Trump. But privately in other lanes, we're getting word that Peter Tickton is in fact going to be President Trump's choice to take Pam Bondi's position over Department
So
of
much
Justice.
there. The summary, folks, you've got an election day pause on the horizon. Number two, check out the Law of War Manual. I have it up on my website, jmcbroadcasting.com. I'm looking at it here on the screen. The Law of War Manual, as well as the National Security Strategy and the National Defense Strategy documents official from the administration. I encourage our viewers to go there. Thank you so much for all that information, Juan. And isn't it interesting, folks? The 107th executive order at 1:07 p.m. told to us today by 1:07. Anyway, fascinating, boggles the mind. You talked about free elections as a legacy for the president, as well as restoring constitutional and sound money.
Hello and welcome to Nick V Uncensored. Today we've got Gene Decode, and today we're going to be talking about the solar flash. We're going to be talking about Trump and Israel, and also what the next 5 years looks like for planet Earth. Gene, thank you so much for joining me, sir. How are you, and what have you been up to?
I was just really busy. I'm doing well, and just so busy with the website and everything going on, and trying to keep up with everything as things are happening so fast now. It's mind-boggling. I know the masses, the normies, as they're called, don't see it yet because they don't do research. But there's so many platforms now with excellent information about what's going on. The platforms I usually used to watch are normies, and they think the 17 board and that stuff was a psyop, so they don't have the actual information of what's going on, like in Ukraine and that. So I don't follow them anymore because it's just they have TDS so bad I can't take it.
Where we start? Let's start with obviously you're a very big Trump supporter, and with what do you think's going on now, especially with this phone call recently with Trump to Netanyahu, telling him he's crazy, he shouldn't go to Lebanon, and nobody likes Israel anymore because of this. Is it scripted? Is Netanyahu not with us anymore? Because there was also something about him about a month ago or so where he was missing. He didn't turn up to, this meeting, and something about his airplane, having ambulance on the airplane or something like that. But for you probably tell me, oh, it's all scripted. I mean, what do you think's going on here?
Yeah, that's what I'll tell you. Well done. So what's going on is that during the first Iranian conflict where Iran and Israel were exchanging missiles before Epic Fury, his bunker got hit along with the Israel, what they call the Israel Pentagon, which is underneath Israel. This is before Epic Fury. I can't remember the exact date right now. I'm sorry. But so what we've seen since is Netanyahu 2.0. And so when it came out that, he wasn't around and he wasn't coming in, and they did a AI video, CGI kind of AI thing with him having a cup of coffee and his fingers were wrong and he tilted the coffee, which was up to the brim, and it didn't spill. And for people that don't understand that, like you see one with Trump where he has an extra finger or something, or you see like with Charlie Kirk where the ring finger, the ring disappears and reappears. That's intentional. Those are comps, because people at high level, they have teams of people that go through those videos and make sure there's not a single flaw. And they have super AI that can catch anything. And to have a mistake like that means it was meant to be there in the first place. So that was the reason. And so now what we're seeing now that we have 2.0 is Trump showing the people who are still somewhat awake enough to see it and understand that he is not controlled by Israel. The U.S. is not controlled by Israel. Since the visit of, well, the summons, not really the visit, the summons of the King of England and the UK, and our sovereignty granted to us, and Trump became the beekeeper, as it said, we have had sovereignty. And so he has now taken that one step further with us, with Netanyahu, showing that we now have taken over the Mossad and control Mossad and control have taken, for the majority, you still have cells that are on the other side, but we are in control of Israel and not the other way around where Israel's in control of the U.S. Back to you, Nick. Yes, there are good Jewish people in Israel, but that's not who's been running the place. It's the Zionists that's been running the place since the beginning, and then some.
Absolutely, yes, there is a Zionist. There are very good Jews, and there are many Jews in Israel who are against what's going on with Zionism. They're very aware of it, and they've been speaking out against it, and they've actually been supporting Palestine. So I've seen those videos, and I've seen the Orthodox Jews that talk about that. So it's not the Jews, it's the Zionists that are the Bolsheviks and the Khazarian mafia, and the state of Israel with this Luciferian agenda they have, and they're using Judaism to mask their true identity. What do you think about that?
Well, that's actually precisely right. When the Zionists, or if you want the Scion, S-C-I-O-N, is because they're originally not from Earth, they're from the Scion star system. They blew up their homeworlds of Ariana and came here and landed in the Pontic Steppes in Ukraine. And so then they became known as the name changers because they were grabbing people on the Silk Road and taking their identities and their names and going back and, taking money and things that they were owed and all kinds of stuff. And so the czar at that time said, you've got to, take one of the three Abrahamic religions and stop sacrificing children to Baal Moloch, which is now in the, Moloch is actually now being talked about in Congress and Senate in the U.S., that's now revealed. And so they took the Jewish religion, but they made it Talmudic Jewish religion. In other words, from the Book of Solomon and all of that, and all those satanic rites and warlock witchcraft, kind of dark magic Satanism and all that added straight into it. And then as they migrated outwards as name changers, Khazarian Mafia, whatever you want to call them, they went to Spain, and that's when the Spanish were the same way. The leaders of Spain said, you got to stop this stuff. So then they became the Jesuits. That's when you got the Jesuits started. So it's one thing after another. It's still all the same group of satanic beings that came to this planet to rule it and feel that they're superior to humanity. In that they deserve to rule it because they're superior and their God, Satan, is the one God that they follow. So it's not truly the one God, but that's what they follow. So back to you.
Yeah, I understand that these beings are basically disconnected from source field or the Christ consciousness. They're disconnected. So everything is inverted. They just want to destroy what's organic and replace it with synthetic. That literally came here from another place in physical forms, or did they incarnate here in the human body?
They literally came here from another world in physical form.
So no and some incarnations, would you say it's a mix?
Well, since that time, yes. And they periodically, because they're disconnected from source field, they don't have the ability to connect and get original information and knowledge directly from God. And because of that, and their desire to control the stargates on Earth, the 12 gates, is the DNA is one of the keys. That's why the 17 board says the war is for your DNA. That's a big part of the reason. So every once in a while, they'll marry one of the bloodlines they're missing to have the genetic marker to be able to access the Stargate. And they keep trying and trying, but it doesn't work. And they haven't still figured out with the genetic marker why they still can't access it, because you're still disconnected from source field. It doesn't matter if you have the genetic marker in your genetics. You aren't connected. And the gates are built such that they recognize that, just like the Golden Dome technology up in Alaska. It recognized it and it wouldn't let them use it. And so it's the exact same thing. So that's why you see like Princess Diana, where they married a commoner so that they could get up. They keep trying. They never give up. And so back to you, sir.
We've got these beings now. They poisoned Atlantis, I think 12,500 years ago. They fell from 5D to 3D consciousness, a very, very slow erosion. And now here we are. They want to do a full lock on the souls who are dormant currently into this digital idea, I think, where they hijack their frequency into their own synthetic hologram that they want to create, where we don't reincarnate and we forever reincarnate automatically, from what I understand, so that they could forever get loosh energy harvesting from us.
Yes.
And this is what this digital idea is about. And there's going to be a point from source, and I think other galactic beings who are helping. I don't know how true that is, but what I do understand is that there's going to be there's loads of solo flares, but a solo flash, a main flash coming, where this is going to lock the low frequency control energy, the control system energy, out of our Earth energy, hologram, if you like. Can you explain that to me, please?
Okay, so timelines exist because there's a difference in the quantum resonance. At the quantum level, that's what quantum is. It's a packet vibration around every particle, and it has exactly the same packet vibration in this universe. In another universe, which are infinite parallel universes, they have a different quantum packet vibration. So back in 2008, I believe it was, and Kerry Cassidy has interviewed two gentlemen about this. Excuse me, hold on a second. They found that their timeline that for their new world order was not. They're using looking glass, and the more they used it, the less it looked like they were going to be able to get the new world order. They had thought it was absolute, and then it kept getting less and less probability. And so they brought in an expert to look at the algorithms and to tell them why. And he said that if you don't get it set by 2012, you will never get it, because by 2012, there will be only two timelines, which is yours, the Armageddon line, and then the golden line of God. And at that time, once the CME comes after that period of time, then the two lines will be from 2012 will be the only two lines. When the CME comes, they will completely separate, and you will not be able to do anything to get back to influence the God line. And not only that, but your line will be extinguished after the CME, within about 12 to 14 years. All life on Earth, on your Earth, will extinguish itself, like you saw in the movie Intergalactic. And so were desperately trying to change it. And every time they did, they sent teams back to make adjustments and all kinds of things. And every time they did, they just made it more absolute. It just made it worse and worse and worse. And then in 2012, there was an event they caused that caused three minor coronal mass emissions to pass between this, which was the event, to actually cause the event. It's like the hit in a certain city, so he went all the way to this other city, so it's kind of like that. You try to avoid something, and by what you do, you actually wind up causing it. So they actually caused it. They created three CMEs, and the Golden Dome negated them as they passed between the moon and the Earth. And so that then set the timelines separate from each other, separating more and more. And the coronal mass emission will be the final complete separation, and the upgrade for the ones on the golden line to 3D, 4D, 5D positive completely, without this negative interference for a very, very, very long time, at least 1,000 years. And then on the negative line, their line will, as I said, eventually extinguish, but that's descension to negative 3D, 4D, and 5D.
So when do you, from the ancient texts and the and hidden knowledge, when do you think we are close to the solar flash? And the other thing I want to say before you answer that is, I want to say that there will be signs that I've read, and one of the signs that we're coming closer to the solar flash is that the ozone layer will become so thin, or the electromagnetic field of Earth will be so thin, that birds will lose navigation, so they won't fly, and even aeroplanes will stop flying, and they won't tell us the truth. It might be about oil or something like that, but they will be able to, they won't have, their navigation GPS will not work. What do you think about that? And when do you think how close do you think we are?
Well, I know the exact date, the problem that it's going to happen. The problem is that they have messed with the calendar so many times, they don't even know what year we're actually in. We're certainly not 2026. It can be many, many years, even over a decade distorted. So, it was put out a long time ago that it was supposed to be 2031 for the CME, but it could be, could be 2041. It could be even more. I don't know, because of what they did. And then the nature of it is that depending on where a person is at, how it affects them. So if a person is very spiritual and very kind and compassionate and is pretty on, they may not even notice it. It may happen and go by, and for a lot of people. And then for the people that are really, as the line separates completely, that are really bad, well, they'll notice it, but they won't be on our Earth anymore. They'll be on the Armageddon line, so they won't be here to say anything. And a lot of people the traumatic events may not stick in their memory as they go through that, and people may not actually remember it. A lot of people, and so that's the information I have as far as I can tell you.
Now, I want to tell you what I think about something. Now, I don't think it's necessarily good or bad. It's more frequency. Now, if they're anchored in ego and fear and even guilt, it's a low frequency. And I think what you said, absolutely, it's about compassion and love. But I think most importantly, are you authentic? Are you in your truth? Do you speak the truth when uncomfortable? And I think that's. What do you think about that?
That's absolutely it. It's you go to where you resonate always. It's all about resonation. And as far as what you're saying about the birds, we actually are seeing, it's not just geoengineering. We're actually seeing the first effect of that with the bees. The bees are having issues. They're the very first ones.
So from my information that I've got was when we start seeing the GPS stop, it doesn't work anymore, the ozone layer's thinning, I was told that was a marker that we could be 6 months away from that. What do you think about that?
That's possible.
Okay. And also, there's a lot of synthetic life here that was populated by these beings to destabilize souls from awakening. And many are NPCs, as we call them. And
yes.
a lot of them have synthetic souls, and they're not real. They're real is in the human flesh, but they're not real in the eternal sense. And they're here to be connected to the hive mind, to make us feel we're the black sheep and there's something wrong with us. And awakening subconsciously means we're crazy. What do you think about that? And what would happen to these NPCs when we cross over?
They'll not make the shift unless they become individual human beings, kind of like in the movie Free Guy. It is possible they can do that, but they're here to make a massive population of beings that go with the party line, that do exactly what they're told. And, it reminds me, I went for a medical checkup and I was trying to tell the doctor a certain thing and he just kept repeating a certain line. And I said, no, this is what I'm telling you. And it's like he couldn't hear me at all. And I kept saying the same thing, and he said the same thing. It had nothing to do with what I was saying. I'm like, finally, I go, oh, never mind, because I realized NPC. He can't get beyond the programming. It's impossible. And so I'm just talking I might as well talk to just not talk at all. And so that's because if you bury the human within that mass of people like that, they feel that that's what you should do. You should go along, do what you're told, do this, do that, and they all believe this, so that must be true. If everybody believes it, that must be the truth. Where it's like Gandhi said, just because everybody but one person believes something doesn't make it true, and that doesn't make the one person wrong if he believes something that no one else believes. One person can have the truth, and everybody else be wrong, and that's why they buried the humanity in this massive NPC infestation. And then also on top of that, they took a lot of clones with and they punched out lots and lots of clones. So the white hats now have clone hunters that they're going out and, mostly special forces types.
Wow. And this is to populate the earth. More and more of fake people.
Yeah, the clone hunters are getting rid of them, and the NPCs won't make the shift.
When I speak to, there's people that are who are spiritually aware, who ask, why am I here? There's more to this. I'm not just a body. There's a reason why I'm here. There's a purpose. I can feel it. There's something more. But then you've got an NPC or that says, and they don't think about why they're here because they don't have true self-awareness. They just want to work to make money and to protect their identity, which is their ego. So, and because their identity is their software, whereas a soul knows that they can observe their identity and their ego because they know it's not them. They know that there's peace behind that, and that's their essence. But how can you differentiate the difference between an NPC and a soul who's dormant and fragmented from trauma and is completely asleep that also operates from the ego? How do you know the difference?
Well, a person that's fragmented through, and has PTSD, they'll have PTSD from the trauma, but a NPC would not have PTSD from it, not like a human being. And they would still, the human with PTSD will be questioning things, and they'll be, having issues about it, and they'll be questioning certain things. The Anunnaki that created mankind, along with the Alpha Draco and a couple other groups. And so that's been inbred so much that you could be the only human in your family. And so, it's like there was a member of my family when all this, the stuff was coming with the jab and all that. And I said, if there was an event coming and it meant your sovereignty, do you want to know? And the person told me no. And I said, if it meant your soul, would you want to know? And the person told me, I don't know if I have a soul, and I don't want to know if I have a soul, and I don't care if I have one or not. And I mean, I'm like, wow, we can't be related, but you can be, but you're not really related in the true sense, is you're not both from source you're not able to access source. And so that just floored me that a person could actually think that. And so it's along that kind of line where they don't feel they have a soul, and of the bloodlines of Cain. And each one is an oversoul, and all the beings in that oversoul lineage of that one share the same soul. They're oversouled. And so if you say there's 13 for about 2.3 billion people, and you do the math, how much soul do they have? Soul energy? Not much. And that's your moral compass. That's your sense of self. That's your sense. Your ego is not you. And your sense of right and wrong and all of those things. So that's the massive difference we have on Earth.
It's crazy, isn't it? Wow.
Yes.
Yes, I love knowing this. I mean, I love learning about this. It's very interesting to understand the architecture of consciousness.
Say is work on your spirituality, yourself, your compassion, your truth, your peace. Above all is peace within yourself, a total utter peace of contentment, of understanding and accepting all of what your life is and all of what it will be, to merge with the oneness, the divine oneness. Thank you, Nick.
I love it. Thank you, Gene. It's an absolute pleasure. And we'll speak again very soon. You take care and God bless.
You can imagine. What Mark Wahlberg exposes next will make you mad as hell and sick to your stomach. And he says, the question isn't if it comes out, it's what happens to this entire corrupt system when it does.
He's on camera in a room full of boys with George Clooney. Puff Daddy, Puffy Diddler, whatever his name is now, was involved in the setup. You don't need to know more except that everyone in Hollywood has seen it. And I'm not going to rest until these creeps are shot dead by firing squad.
Brave truth tellers like Mark Wahlberg are leading the way, speaking their truth from the front lines, and exposing the corruption at the heart of the most powerful institutions in the world. Now, others are beginning to wake up to the truth. A movement is growing.
Now, what made Russia, flip from the Soviet Union back to the Republic of Russia was the child, basically they're stealing the children, doing the, like they talk about with Vlad the Impaler, Dracula, adrenochrome children in Russia, and Russians got tired of it. And that's what really, I talked to a lot of people about this. This is what turned everybody. So we talk about mama bears and mama lionesses. This is what happened. Draco reptilian, group that still does this stuff. we have to throw it off, just like Soviet Union did. That's why they hate Russia so much, and why they're trying to take Russia down, because they threw off this evil group, and now the rest of the world is getting ready to get their evil thrown off by we the people. So I think that's one of the things that we're looking at right now. Huge stuff. I mean, we can talk about the alien stuff, but really the alien stuff comes all the way down to the children, right? So they're, in the chat are probably blowing up right now. I haven't looked, but yeah, this is what's really going to make the difference.
Well, and that goes to a lot of the missing children and the baby farms, and kind of what Phil Snyder talked about, right? Is that in Mesa Verde and that whole area over there, there is an underground base that was not made by us, that is housed by reptilians that are, from what I've heard, they were the kind of stragglers on this planet. They were not part of the reptilian civil. I don't know. I'm just kind of going through what I've heard, but that they eat children for intoxication, that they eat the pineal glands in the various different glands, the adrenal glands of children, because they're very, very potent and it gets them intoxicated. And that this is what a lot of these baby farms and all this stuff was for. Now, do I believe that? I think that there's a lot of truth to that, and I think that I don't know if that stuff is going to come out. I probably doubt it, because I think that a lot of that evil ET on this planet has honestly been decimated. I think it's been destroyed. And I think that and I know there's rumors, and this is just I haven't heard any of this from my sources, but I've heard that good ETs, along with humans, were going through and clearing this stuff out. And this is paving the way for removing those control structures, because you got to think about it, is these bloodline families were working for some hidden controlling hand, some overseer. And that in order to start freeing them, to get them out of their burden of being within this construct of control, this matrix, you have to take out the overseer. And I think that that's what a lot of has been happening over the course of the last decade. And this is why you see people like, Mark Zuckerberg turning coat and working with Trump, and all these other people working with Trump. Not that they're good people, but because, if you're Donald Trump, you don't take Mark Zuckerberg and shut down and then acquire all of his stuff, because then it's going to go away. You lose all that resource infrastructure. Instead, you get the man, you free him from his chains, you bring him in, and then you control him from that point. And that's what Trump is really, really good at. Although I think he believes he can do it with Iran, and I don't think that that's going to happen. I think there's going to be another decapitation event in Iran. I think we're going to go in there. We're going to drop some bombs on the IRGC hardline. And then he'll restart negotiations again. And I think that's going to probably happen over the course of the next few weeks. At least that's my thoughts on it. But for the ET stuff, I think that we're in for a very, very big surprise. And I think that if you are alive in the next 5 to 10 years, which I'm sure everybody listening and every person on this podcast is going to be, you are going to see some advancements of technology that are going to blow your freaking mind.
Yeah.
You know what the most exciting is about that is the life extension stuff. That to me is people having a second chance at a real good life, because you think about the people that are living. You mentioned, Josh, everybody watching this, you got somebody in their 80s, they, like my dad was always worried about, not worried, but he just kept saying, man, I just hope I'm alive to see this, see the ending of it or whatever. I said, oh, Pop, you're absolutely going to. I didn't know they were going to get to him, but I think about that in this time where the most exciting moment in the history of the human species is right now upon us. And there are people who are just hoping and praying that they're on the edge of the doorstep and they're just on their way out. Like, man, I just hope this happens so I can see this, I can watch this. And for me, I think the most important technology is the life extension technology, whatever that looks like, whether it's a pod, whether it is some type of quantum field so they can actually be part of this incredible, you talk about, Josh, the technological advancement. I've heard this, and I know you guys have probably heard the same thing. In the next 5 years, the advancement we're going to see, maybe it's 5 or 10 years, the advancement we're going to see is going to be a 500-year leap. In fact, there's a book written 30 years ago called The 500-Year Leap. in technology and advancement, and to just to watch that happen and see this become a Jetsons type planet, where now, and I think about all this stuff, that what happens to the planet when all this stuff hits us, because I said you want to change the entire planet, get anti-gravitics in our hands and let's go to work, because literally overnight you're talking about the dissolution of every road and street in the world, like picking it up off the ground, no more incursion on Mother Gaia, and no more car crashes, because you're on one plane and it's this way, that way, car crashes. 300,000 people, 400,000 die every year in this country from car crashes. When you have these planes, all these multi-dimensional planes where we have this vastness we could be traveling through and not making a danger for everybody. But I said to Sasha once, I said, we were off the coast of Turkey or somewhere last fall on a ship, and we're looking at the infrastructure, and I'm just thinking, how do you transition that? How long is it going to take, same conversation, to deconstruct this concrete jungle of a planet and get rid of the ugliness of it all? He said it'll happen instantly. And the way he described it is, it's the conscious or spiritual leap into, let's say it's a higher dimension, or basically transitioning into that dimension. And what you'll see is like a ripple effect, and all of a sudden it's all gone, and what you see replacing it is what it was supposed to be on a different timeline. I thought, man, how fascinating would that be to see that kind of a transformation, literally demolecularize or move through that wave field into maybe the advancement is that, but what we're sort of transitioning into what it was supposed to be, without this yoke or this weight that kept humanity down. I mean, who knows? The wonderment of it all is going to be the best part, trying to figure out what it's going to look like and then having it actually happen. I think this is just an amazing time for all of us to be, number one, alive, but we actually get to talk about this without having yet another channel taken down. And obviously we've got the controls now, because here we are talking about things that would really get you ostracized or just killed just